Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the third day of this year's Echo Solar Home Tour. Today we're going to be looking at homes in the Calgary area. This is the first of 2 days where we're going to be looking at Calgary homes. Today we'll do the first 5 homes in Calgary. I want to welcome everybody to the home tour. There we are. So welcome to our virtual Echo Solar Home Tour. This year is the first and hopefully the only time we'll have to do online virtual tours. We hope to be back where we can meet in person with everybody again next year. I want to thank all our homeowners who have offered their homes and helped prepare the information that you're going to see today and for all the rest of our tour. I also want to thank our Zoom helpers today. I want to thank our concierge, Lee Bond, who is helping the homeowners get prepared behind the scenes. I want to thank our quizmaster, Gordon Howell, who will be handling questions today. I want to thank our chat help, Shane Fraser, who is monitoring the chat and helping let people in and managing video and audio in the background. I want to thank Visitor Services, that's Monica Paraschiv, who is helping to admit people in the background and keep track of how many folks we have online today. I also want to thank Frank Crawford, who is monitoring our social media today. Frank is monitoring Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook for us today. And if questions come up that way, he'll try to relay them into the meeting for us. And my name's Andrew Mills. I'm the president of the Echo Solar Home Tour Society of Alberta, which is the group which puts on this particular tour. Our other members on the line today, Gordon is a member, Shane is a member, and Monica is a member of the society. So thank you all for being part of the Echo Solar Home Tour Society. So I also want to thank our Calgary sponsors. Because this is our Calgary tour, we're going to thank our Calgary sponsors today. Our silver sponsors are 4 Elements and Innotech Windows and Doors. Thank you to our silver sponsors. Our bronze sponsors today are Skyfire Energy and the City of Calgary and the Solar Club. The Solar Club we'll probably hear a bit more about as we go through the day, as we have a couple of homes that are taking advantage of the Solar Club. So our online tour today, we have 40 minutes for each home. We'll start with some sort of presentation on the home. In many cases, that will be a video. And then that video that was prepared earlier will be run first. In other cases, it may actually be a presentation. Whatever that is, it will be run first as at the first part of the 40 minutes to give you an introduction. During that time, you can prepare your questions and put them into the chat. You want to send your chat questions to the quizmaster, and that's you'll be able to easily identify that by starting with the number sign, and then quizmaster should come up right away. Please send all your questions by chat. It's also possible to send questions to the email address info@echosolar.ca. If you're watching the live stream on YouTube, for example, you can send your questions to info@echosolar.ca. We will also be monitoring that particular email address after today's tour. So if you wake up at midnight tonight and say, "Ooh, I forgot that question," you can email that to us, and we will figure out how to answer that for you. Either passing it on to the we'll either pass it on to the homeowner, or we'll answer it ourselves. Now, for security reasons, the participants will normally be muted and your videos will be off today. Our homeowners will be, their videos and their audio will be turned on for when they're presenting, but for the most part, the only videos you're going to see will be of the organizers and the volunteers, and you will not be able to turn your video or your or your audio on. So if you have a question or if you have a concern, you can send it to chat help for assistance. If you have a question about one of the homes, send it to the Quizmaster. There is also no public chatting to anybody. We just need to keep control of this meeting. Thank you very much. Now, what I want to start with today is we have a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a video from the Edmonton tour. Last week, we did 2 days of the Edmonton tour. We had 16 homes, including many net zero homes. And I just want to start with this really good video of one of the homes in Edmonton. This is the Woodhaven Net Zero Energy Home. This is a 10-minute video, and we'll start with this just as an introduction. All of the homes in Edmonton will be available. The live stream was recorded, and that live stream will be posted on the ecosolar.ca website likely by next week. We've just finished the editing, so we'll be posting that up to the website for next week. So if you'd like to see the 16 homes of the Edmonton tour, you can go and you can see them there. So let's take a look at the Woodhaven home. This is 10 minutes. I'll be back after this plays.
Hello everyone, my name is Robert Allen and welcome to my house. And this is the Eco Solar Tour. My house is here in Edgemont, Edmonton, and I'd like to show it to you. Come on in. The reason I built a net zero house was to help balance the impact of humans on the environment and do my part. I wanted to show an example of what change can be, and that example is for my kids mostly. The goals of the house as a net zero home is to be Energy Guide 0 rated over time, so net zero for energy use over time, through purely electrical heating and electrical generation. The EnerGuide rating of the house is 0, which was tested by Cantero Homes, which was our builder. They're formerly known as Dolce Vita Homes. We don't have a lot of historical data for the house to prove that out yet, since the house is only 4 months old. We are monitoring the energy use in the house through use of a Rainforest Eagle 200 device, which allows us to log all the energy data. But that's enough of the numbers. Let's take a look at what technologies are in the house that make this into a net zero home. The features of this house, the mechanical features that make it into a net zero house, include primarily the building envelope itself, which includes extra insulation, a total of R34 insulation, which is a combination of R24 fiberglass insulation plus a foam insulation exterior as well to the house. There's also a aero barrier sealant that was sprayed on the inside of the house to help keep the air loss down to the barest minimum. I believe it's something like 1/10 of what the standard is for a house of this size. There's also active solar generation on the roof, creating 16,000 watts of energy, which helps to power the electrically powered air-sourced heat pump, which heats the house as well. So the windows and doors of the house are also enhanced. The windows themselves are triple pane, gas filled and low E, so they don't allow a whole lot of heat loss or excessive heat gain through sun. The doors as well, triple point sealed so that they can prevent the most amount of heat loss. Now let's go downstairs and check out the mechanical room, and we can see all the different systems that make this house net zero. mentioned before, the house is powered by a 16,000 watt solar array, which has its own microinverters on it. So it can feed power directly into the house so that we can use it as it's being generated. This prevents you from having to buy batteries to get that off-grid usage. So you can still use some of your own green energy that you produce, but it will feed energy back into the grid as well for net metering. The house uses a wastewater heat recovery system, where when wastewater is coming out of the house, there's a copper section of pipe here, wrapped by another thinner copper section of pipe. So the water leaving the house when it's hot, for example, when you're doing dishes with a dishwasher or taking a shower, will force hot water to leave the tanks, and then that new water coming in will have to go around this, absorbing the heat from the water leaving the house, which prevents the hot water tanks from having to do too much work to reheat that water. The hot water tanks are a hybrid heat pump system. The controller up here is the heat pump that does all the heating of the water, and it uses the same technology as the furnace. It's an air-sourced heat pump, which heats the water, and we use a second tank just for storage to create this hybrid overall system. For a humidifier, we use a steam humidifier that prevents us from having to heat the air as we're trying to humidify the house. That way the humidifier can run just with the blowers in the furnace, rather than having to fire up the furnace every time we want to humidify the house, which can save energy as well. The furnace itself is amazing. It's a heat pump done by Mitsubishi. These pipes run outside to a device that looks a lot like an air conditioner, and it basically draws heat from outside air using compression technology, gives those BTUs to the house, and feeds them up into the house through 3 different zones of heating to make it as efficient as possible. With such a heavily sealed building envelope, with the aero barrier technology plus everything else that's gone into making this house airtight, you have to get fresh air in and out of the house. But you don't want to lose all the heat of the air that you've already heated up in the house. So we use this heat exchanger, this HRV unit, which draws humid, stale air out of the house and brings in fresh air, but it passes it by each other inside this unit in order to heat up the fresh air that's coming into the house. That way we don't have to heat it up again. We put a lot of attention into the building envelope of the house to prevent air loss. For example, we have a double layer of drywall in the ceiling so that any light fixtures don't penetrate the envelope and allow air to escape out into the attic, as well as there's an R80 layer of insulation. Another part of that is that we use a dryer that is a heat pump technology, so that it uses the same technology as the water heater and the furnace in order to dry the clothes, which is more efficient. On top of that, it vents to this room. So we didn't want to put a hole in the exterior wall, again, to prevent air from getting out. But because that air ends up in this room and this dryer needs dry, cool air in order to dry the clothes, we had to install a vent from the HRV system in this room, which will draw this humid, hot air out of the room during the summer months when we don't really want that air in the house, as well as to provide dry, cool air to the dryer so it can function the best way. The challenge of getting this house into the net zero category was mostly due to its size. For such a large home and heating it with a heat pump, it requires a lot of electricity, not just from the heat pump, but from all the electrical appliances and lighting. So to offset that, that's why we went with such a large solar array. The key costs in building the house was the larger solar array and the extra insulation. The cost of the heat pump was somewhat offset by the fact that you can get rid of the furnace you plan on putting in the house as well. This was a newly constructed house, so we had that option. For a existing house, you wouldn't really have that option, unfortunately. And everything else just kind of added up in cost, but it was all worth it. What I would have done differently, I had hoped to do geothermal heating for the home, which would have been a little more stable in our colder climate in Canada than air-sourced heat pumps. The ground-sourced heat pump would have been great to get a very consistent heat out of the ground, but unfortunately we're backing onto a ravine, so we weren't allowed to do that. So to complete your net zero home, you probably also want to get an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle like this Sonata Hybrid to just round out the entire package and reduce our carbon footprint just a little bit more. Thanks everyone for coming to visit my home. I'm glad to share it with you. Have a great day.
All right, well, that's the Woodhaven home in Edmonton, which you'll be able to see on the Edmonton tour. If you go to the website, the entire Edmonton tour will be posted there on the Edmonton page sometime likely next week. As I say, we have the videos done. We'll be posting them there right away. All the videos that you'll see today, all the videos today that we're running are also available on our webpage, on the Calgary site. So if you want to review these videos later, you can look at just the videos. And you can also find, you'll also find the live stream, which will be recorded after this day. It'll take us a couple of days to get it on the website, but you'll be able to look at it from there as well. Now, today we're here to listen to the experiences of our homeowners. Participants will remain muted unless they're recognized during questions. I want everybody to remember to address everyone respectfully, both if they're speaking and if they're on chat. We're not here to criticize the homeowner's experiences. This is not, we don't need anybody playing devil's advocate. That's not that type of meeting. We're here to listen and support what these homeowners have done and to learn from their experience. That's, it's very helpful when you're doing when you're doing some of your own work or trying to do some of your own research. It's important to listen to what other people have done. We're also not here to criticize the technologies presented. It doesn't matter whether you dislike a particular technology or not. It's just not today's forum to say that's not something that's valid. We're not here to criticize those technologies. There are other forums available for that. This is not one of them. And finally, not to distract the conversation away from the tour, we have had some problems with trolls getting into our meeting. Participants not following any of these guidelines will be removed from the meeting immediately and won't be able to get back in. So today we have 5 homes we're going to go through, and we have been talking right now. This is our welcome period from noon till 12:20 is our welcome, and then we're going to be going through 5 homes. One of the things, if you're watching this on the live stream later, is that the timings of the videos follow the timing of the live stream actually follows what you see in the schedule. So for example, if you are looking to see the Balmoral home on the live stream later, when you go back to the website, you would just look at the 1 hour mark, and that will be when that starts. Because we started at noon, all of the actual video times should line up with the times that you see in this video. So we're just about ready to start on our first home. Our first home is the Airdrie Near Net Zero home. And we have prepared a video interview with the homeowner, who is Adrian Ballard. And Adrian and I prepared this video a couple of weeks ago. And this is an introduction to the home. Now, while this video is playing, you can go into the chat and you can enter your questions, which we will take the questions after the video plays. So let's see my video interview with Adrian. Let's let this play. There we go. All right. Hi there, and welcome to the EcoSolar Home Tour. My name is Andrew Mills, and today we're going to be talking about a near net zero home in Airdrie, Alberta. With me today is Adrian Ballard, who is the homeowner of the home. Welcome to the EcoSolar Home Tour, Adrian.
Hi, Andrew. Nice to be here.
Adrian, your home is an example of a near net zero home that features built green construction, a 10 kilowatt solar array, a heat pump hot water tank, and an electric car. So give me a bit of background on why you chose to build your home like this. What were the main things you were trying to accomplish?
Well, we're super into energy efficiency and eco and everything that's green. So that was certainly a big incentive. We were keen to get the house to net zero. It's near net zero, as you just described, and we're hoping over the coming years that we'll add a couple of things to get it pretty much close to net zero, if not even beyond. So,
great. Can you explain the EnerGuide rating of your home for us?
Yeah, so with the Built Green program that Excel Homes used, so the house it should have been about 114 gigajoule per year, but we save about 20% from that with the extra insulation and the heat recovery ventilator and the lights. Mm-hmm. So we're down to 95 gigajoule just on the home itself. And then we added some things beyond that. So we added the solar panels. So we have 33 solar panels on the roof, which is 10.5 kilowatt DC. And that produces 13,000 kilowatt hours a year, which is about 47 gigajoule. And then we put in a heat pump hot water tank, as you can see in the picture on the left. And they're about 350% efficient. So using a 400 watt of electricity, you get about 1.5 kilowatt of hot water. So that takes about 14 gigajoule off that 95 rating that we looked at too. So we're down to about 34 gigajoule per year at this point in time. And we're hoping to add a cold climate air source heat pump like the Mitsubishi Zuba. And we're looking at potentially double insulating some walls as we create feature walls. And that should bring us in towards the net zero point. Okay, interesting. Let's take a look at some of the other features of your home. What would you say is the standout feature of your home? I would say that would definitely be the solar panels. It's quite apparent as you're approaching the house from the south side when you see all the black panels on the roof. We maxed out the entire south-facing roof. It's not possible to fit a 34th panel on the roof. And we were keen we have an EV, so we knew we would have a significant electricity demand. And it's like, on a hot summer's day or a sunny day in late June, early July, we can get up to 75 kilowatt hours in one day, which is over 500 kilometers of driving in the EV. So basically, it's like getting a free tank of gas from the roof of your house from a sunny day in the height of summer.
Interesting. So when we build energy efficient homes, we make a series of choices. What would you say were the main choices you made as far as energy efficiency in your home?
The likes of triple glazed windows was something that we were keen at. One of the reasons we moved forward with Excel Homes. And they put in the NEMA 1450 charger in the garage for us. They've added extra insulation in the attic. We put in underslab insulation, which they didn't do as a standard practice. And we put in like double cellular blinds that I'll come to as well. That really adds to it, almost doubles the insulation of the triple glazed windows. And there we can see Skyfire Energy installing the solar panels. That was a couple of years ago at this stage.
Still pretty early in in your housing development there.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, it's been really built up in the past 6 months. It's amazing just how much development's been going on around us. And there we have the furnace room. On the left-hand side, you can see the heat recovery ventilator. The house is pretty airtight at 1.3 air changes per hour. So at this point in time, we need to start bringing in mechanical ventilation to make sure the air quality is good. And that's 66% efficient in terms of giving the heat to the fresh air coming in and being taken away from the stale air being sent out. We have a 4-inch air filter in the furnace, which really helps make sure the air is dust-free, and it's almost HEPA quality, the filter that we've gone with. The gas furnace is there to my chagrin, but I say over time, I'm hoping to replace that with a Mitsubishi Suba cold climate air source heat pump. And they're efficient even below minus 30 degrees Celsius. And with a 10 kilowatt tank of our resistance heating, we can make sure the house is still cozy when it's minus 40 degrees.
Great.
Here at the top left-hand side, there's the controls for the heat recovery ventilator. And that helps us, we don't have to adjust it that much, but in the really cold days, we can help reduce humidity by bringing in more outside air. And that can help just make sure with condensation on the glazing. And we have a smart thermostat that also is controlled by a phone app, and that just helps us to change schedules pretty easy on the phone, or to adjust the temperature when we're away from the house, and then just the humidifier setting below that.
Interesting. Another important area for savings is water costs. Are there any features of your home that save on water costs?
Yeah, the builder supplied a very efficient pilot. It only uses about 3 liters per flush, and they work really well. On the heat pump hot water tank, so we have a preheating hot water tank, which really accounts for like 99% of the hot water heating. And that's, I say we have a time scheduled to work during peak solar hours, and that heats the water to 60 degrees Celsius before it goes into the traditional gas tank. But that really rarely has to kick in because it's getting more hot water than the temperature it's set for. So really the vast majority of our water is coming from the heat pump hot water tank, which in turn is solar powered.
Interesting. Are there any other features of your home that you'd like to tell me about?
Sure. One of the easiest things people can do to their homes is actually add honeycomb cellular blinds. They add a value of R3 to a typical window, and we have triple glazed window behind that. So we're really up to R6. And then we added some PVC stripping to the sides just to make sure that the blind was as airtight as possible, which also helps to reduce condensation building up on the windows behind because there's not a flow of fresh, moist air getting in behind it. And it's relatively cheap. And it's one of the best ways to control what was basically a window as the soft spot in any exterior building envelope. And when you can add something like a honeycomb blind, it's really an easy and efficient way to almost double the insulation value.
I could use some of those in my home.
Yeah, highly recommend them. So. Also, another product that we added, again, you can pick one of these up in Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's just a window blind that you can add to the glazing of your front door. They come in all the standard sizes that window glazing comes in. And the door was traditionally just a double glazed window, but by adding this blind, and the blind comes with its own Perspex glaze layer on the inside as well. So we're really making the double glazing triple glazed, plus we're adding that blind layer, which if you close the blind in a minus 40 day, you're creating another air barrier where you've got 2 levels of air before you get to the double glazed window. And you can see on the thermal camera that we have a FLIR adjustment to our phone that works with the app. And you can see at the top of the glazing there, it's almost the same color as the main frame of the door. You can see it's showing even 19.9 degrees at the mid-level on the door. And if that wasn't there and you just had double glazed window and that was a minus 30 day, as you see on the previous slide, that would be down to probably almost freezing. I mean, you can get frost building up in those days when it's minus 30. And yet we have up to almost 20 degrees by adding on that blind. And it's a pretty much a straightforward add-on. You just loosen the trim around the existing door glazing and you slide this in, tighten things back up, and hey presto, you've got a triple glazed front door.
Very nice. You mentioned before that you had an electric car. Tell me why you chose the car and what your experience has been.
I've been super passionate about Tesla and EVs in general since the very start. the car is actually super economical. Like most people, I think, have a thought in their head that Teslas or electric cars are outside their price range. But if they were to look at total cost of ownership, it's actually super economical. And we do a lot of miles. I drive a lot for work. And we were putting $700 gasoline into an ICE. And that $700 of gasoline is less than $100 worth of electricity. So we're saving over $600 a month in running costs. We pay a couple $100 a month extra in a car payment, but it's more than made up in how economical the car is. Plus, it's so much fun to drive. So if anyone's on the fence about getting an EV, I would say look at total cost of ownership, and you'd be surprised how it'll fit into your budget. So.
Interesting. Yeah. So what would you say was the most challenging aspect of building your energy efficient home?
I say we tried to get the builder to get us closer to net zero than originally we got. I say we ended up with a gas furnace. We were hoping to get a fully electrified house, and we've yet to put in our own air source heat pump. And we even looked at putting in a ground source heat pump at the time, but it wasn't going to happen. But by and large, the builder was great to deal with. We had issues about, we tried to get double insulated walls so we could get rid of any cold bridging. And the builder wasn't prepared to go down that road with us. But we're hoping as we do some feature walls, as we go along, that we can double insulate behind the feature wall and bit by bit bring the house up to double insulated walls, at least for some of the house.
So what were the key costs in building your energy efficient home? Anything that stands out?
Certainly the solar panels would be a major part. That's almost a $30,000 investment. We managed to get them in just before the previous government moved out, and they had that carbon tax rebate program with the solar panels. Hopefully that comes back at some point in time, but that covered a third of that cost.
Nice.
And yeah, so that was probably the biggest outlay. The heat pump hot water tank is a few thousand. And say when eventually it's about 10,000 or so for an air source heat pump, which we hope to upgrade the furnace to at some point in time.
Any examples of cost savings on the result of some of these energy efficient choices you've made?
Yeah, certainly the house is quite easy to heat. It doesn't take that much energy, especially with the blinds on the windows. We've kind of got rid of most of the cold spots, as it were. And yeah, the house is it's super cozy. We have it 21 degrees pretty much all the time we're here. And yeah, it doesn't create a big gas bill at all to get it there. So
nice. Anything you would have done differently?
Other than I say some of those extra things about trying to get the heat pump in and have the house fully electrified at the outset. Other than that, we can manage them in time to come as we do some upgrades. So yeah, no, by and large, we're really happy with the house.
Well, I've been working for 20 years to upgrade my house, so good luck to you and have fun with it.
Yeah, it's an ongoing project.
What aspect of your home was the most satisfying to complete?
We really like the interior. Myself and my wife put a lot of thought into the interior decoration and kitting it out. And this here, you can see the electric fireplace below the TV on the wall. On each floor of the house, we have electric resistance heating, and that helps minimize the use of gas. And so you can see the cellular blind there too. We have open plan from that room you just seen towards the dining and the kitchen. And we really like our modern appliances, the white cabinets, the white walls, the gray laminate flooring. So it kind of ticked all the boxes for the style that we were looking to go for.
Very nice, very nice. I think that's it for today. Is there anybody you'd like to thank that helped you design or build the house?
Yeah, I'd certainly like to thank my wife for going along with all my idiosyncrasies when it came to really pushing the envelope and getting an eco-friendly house as much as possible. And the builder, Excel Homes, with their Build Green program, they certainly made it easier to go in the direction that we wanted to go because they have included so much of the features already. So.
Very nice, very nice. And there's your wife there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Adrian, for joining me today and showing pictures of your really quite lovely home. I am looking forward to being able to. All right, well, we'll stop that there. So, thank you, Adrian, for putting helping me put that video together. The next part of our session is to hand things over to Gordon, who's our quizmaster. And Gordon, what kind of questions have we got for Adrian today?
Yes, so if anybody has any questions, please send them to me at the Quizmaster designation at the top of the chat list, at the top of the participant list. I would really like to know more about your honeycomb blinds.
Sure. So basically with a double cell honeycomb blind, you can add R3 insulation to the window. And you can actually, if you get blackout blinds, they have an aluminium foil there in the material, and that can bring it up to actually even R5. And Hunter Douglas have an Essentia blind that actually has, I think it's 4 different air cells between the front and the back of the window. And yeah, you can easily get up into even R7 with the really high-end blinds that are blackout and have multiple air cavities. And if you put either tracks on the side to kind of, some of them come with tracks to make them blackout at the side, or you can add in PVC stripping and put like a white tape on the top of the blind between the frame and the top of the window well. And you can make them pretty much airtight as well just by adding in those extra materials. So.
Wow. I'm always quite fascinated with blinds. Did you put them on the inside of the window, I guess, then, are they?
Exactly, yeah.
How do they respond to high humidity levels in the wintertime with respect to condensation or ice, frost buildup, potential ice buildup causing them to stick, things like that?
Well, there's 2 ways of dealing with condensation of windows and blinds. Number one is to open the top and bottom to let like a warm airflow get to the window to keep the window warm and less likely to condense. The other way is to make it as airtight as you possibly can behind the blind. And we've decided to go the airtight way. So we can, in a -30 day, we can keep the blinds fully closed. And we sealed this top side with tape, and we sealed the sides with PVC stripping. We had like maybe a 5 mil and a 3 mil size, whatever size we could make fit. We put it in, stuck it in at the sides. And if you look at that blind in the screenshot, like you can't see any air pockets getting behind the window blind, and there's only a minimum amount of air behind the blind, so you get very little condensation on the window, because any condensations there will condense, but it's not being refreshed with more moist air and on a consistent basis by having the air blocked out. So it's, yeah, you either go open blinds or you go seal it fully, and it actually works really well on the sealed fully, and you're getting the full insulation benefit on the very days that you need it if you do it that way.
So would you do it again?
Yeah. So there's still like a couple of windows that we'd like to upgrade. The bathroom window didn't actually, we just put a stained glass kind of film on it, but it's another blind I just need to put in. And in that case, we could probably just put in a blackout blind, which gives you an extra R value on the blind itself too.
So can these go on any kinds of windows, even poor windows, or do you have to have decent windows to begin with?
No, they're designed to work with any window. I mean, it's just being connected to the inside of the window frame, so there's no conditions on what's behind the type of window behind it.
Can you get them locally?
Yeah, we actually got them through Home Depot, and they had a sales rep come out to show us options in person, and we just picked the colors and styles and top down, bottom up, all those kind of decisions. And yeah, I actually fit them myself, but they supply them. And in store, you can only buy the singular cell blinds, but if you get them to meet the person, the sales rep, they come to your house and they'll show you all the options that you can get. So.
And is this one kind that you can lower the top and the bottom
exactly,
independently?
Yeah. So you can personalize the privacy level that you're looking for from the top down, bottom up, or if your window opens, the sash window from the bottom, you can just pull the blind up a few inches on the bottom to get the fresh air that way.
Because adding R3 is phenomenal, but adding R5 and R7 to a normal window, that's stunning.
Yeah, if you get the Hunter Douglas, I think it's called a Sentia, and instead of that honeycomb design that you can see on the side edge of the blind in the photograph, it actually has like a center cell like that, and then it has like wrapped around with two slightly smaller cells all the way up, and you're getting 3 air cells before you get to the window and the house, or the inside of the house. Plus, if you get the blackout option, that has the file layer as well. And that adds a whole extra R1, and it gives you blackout on the inside too, if that's what you're looking for.
Wow. Well, thank you very much for that description, and thanks for trying it out so we could all learn from you. I'm very impressed.
Gordon, I have a question. Adrian,
Yep.
One of the things that's really interesting here is that you're in a new, essentially a new subdivision, and you worked with one of the regular builders in that area and still were able to get an energy efficient home. Sort of what was the process with that? How did you sort of approach them and say, I want to push you into more energy efficiency than what you would normally do?
Well, we searched with a lot of different developers that were building in the area, and actually even across the city of Calgary. And we found Excel Homes were part of the Built Green program. And that, as part of that program, they put in heat recovery ventilators as standard. They put in triple glazing as standard. And then, so we knew they were already inclined to work with us and had some of the boxes checked already. And then we agreed on certain sums for putting an extra R10 in the attic to bring that to R60. They put in under slab insulation at R16. That was like above and beyond what they would normally offer for their Built Green package. And yeah, we tried to get them like to not have a gas connection to the house and just have it fully electrified with an air source heat pump, or even ground source heat pump we looked into too, but they weren't prepared to, like with a 100 amp connection, they had some reservations about fully electrifying the house. And also they weren't inclined to double insulate the walls by double framing the walls because they didn't want to interfere with the square footage of the house.
So your electrical connection, Adrian, it's underground, is that correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so updating from 100 amp would have been quite difficult. So that would be standard for that subdivision, would be to have 100 amp service to each of those homes.
Exactly.
That would be limiting, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a couple questions from the audience, which I really appreciate. Tell us more about the electric vehicle charging. Can you set it and forget it so that it charges off the solar being produced?
During the week, we come home and then we plug the car in the evening. These days, the sun is still shining when we come home, and we're getting some solar right into the car at that point in time. On a Friday, we have it set just to start charging. Excuse me. Take a drink. On a Saturday, we have it start charging at 9:30 a.m. when the sun is back up. So our Friday evening charging is cancelled, and it's charging during the day on Saturday and Sunday. And on those occasions, we can pretty much, the car gives you all sorts of options for programming in terms of the amperage and in terms of the time that you want it to start, or you can have it for the set departure and it will work out when it needs to charge before that departure. So it'll put up to 8 kilowatt from the house into the car. And our AC DC inverter from the solar is 8 kilowatt as well. So on a sunny day, we can really put 100% of our solar into the car. Sorry.
What kind of inverter do you have on your solar electric system?
It's a Solar Edge inverter.
Okay.
And actually, they sent me an email during the week that you can actually get a charging cable that comes directly from the inverter on the solar panel under the solar inverter. So just at the bottom left-hand corner of that bottom panel that you see, and there's actually a little plastic opening there that you can put a cable in, and it's a Solar Edge car inverter, and it'll work in such a way that it'll put just solar energy into your car. So if the clouds go overhead, it'll actually unwind the current that's going to the car, and if the clouds come back out 2 minutes later, it goes back up to the full setting to charge the car.
Yes. And
you don't need another breaker on your panel. If your panel is approaching like the maximum limit that you can put breakers onto your panel, this is a great way to pull 40 amp directly from the inverter rather than pulling 40 amp from your breaker panel.
Yes, Solar Edge has this wonderful option for EV charging. It's a special Solar Edge inverter, but nevertheless, it's a new product out and it's magnificent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Adrian, that's a very good comment. Is that with that solar edge inverter, it can actually be restricted so that it will only charge when the sun is shining and when the inverter is producing power. When you're normally charging off your breaker panel, really there's no way to choose whether it's the solar or whether it's the power coming from the grid, because the movement of electricity between the grid and your solar and everything else is all automatic. It's based on call it potential of electricity moving back and forth. You don't get to control that. That's just absolutely automatic.
Correct, but we can adjust it on the car. We can, if it's like a so sunny day, we can put the amperage that the car will take on. So instead of doing it at 32 amp, we can set the car at 16 amp. Okay. And then it will pull 3 or 4 kilowatt, which might be more suitable for how sunny the day is. So there are some tweaks you can do or if we put the dryer on, I can use my phone, excuse me, to stop the charging temporarily. Let the dryer do its thing, and then I can press start charging again on the phone app. And it's a great way just to balance out our usage with our demand. So,
Adrian, I'm going to ask you a little bit more about the solar since we're on that topic right now. Tell me, how does the solar affect your utility costs? Would you mind elaborating on that?
Sure. Basically, we're with a solar club with our provider, Camrose Energy. And the solar club is fantastic. It gives you 26 cents a kilowatt hour when you're exporting over the summer months. And we export for 6 months of the year. And then for the winter, when we start net importing, we go down to a lower standard rate, excuse me, of 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Excuse me. So this really helps us build up a surplus in the summer. And our electricity bill can actually fall to zero in the middle of the summer. And that's including like charging our car to run like maybe up to 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers a month. It's heating all our hot water and running the house. And we have a bill of zero from all those different charges that a typical household would have in terms of gasoline, natural gas, and electricity.
Which is great. So one question came in, says, when you were talking about your inverter breaker, the question was, so does that mean that the inverter breaker for the calculations is considered as a supply at 40 amperes and also a load at 40 amperes?
I'm no expert in that. So okay. As far as it's just a 140 amp breaker goes to the solar edge. And I guess that could be 8 kilowatt going out onto the grid from the inverter, or it could be, if you had that EV charger connected to it, you could be drawing the 8 kilowatt from the solar edge. So it's just using that 140 amp breaker on your panel if you're restricted on your panel. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. So my response to that question is yes, that's what it means. It can be considered a supply of 40 amperes at some point and a load of 40 amperes at others, and then we would consider them separately in terms of doing the calculations, which is fine. It's not hard to do at all. I do have one more question, if I may. Sure. It says, can you upgrade a 30-year-old house? And how much would it cost to upgrade, especially the solar electric system on the roof? Is there any subsidy available? Do you have a response to that at all?
Yes, certainly. The federal Greener Home Grant that just came out is offering up to $5,000 towards a solar system install. So that could be against all the costs of putting in. Even a 30-year-old house probably has a 100 amp connection. So from that perspective, it's unlikely that you necessarily need to upgrade your panel if you have a 100 amp connection. And excuse me, and the other part of that question was, sorry?
Is there a subsidy?
Yeah, other than that $5,000 federal grant that's available.
Right.
So.
And how much would it cost to upgrade? Although when they say upgrade a 30-year-old house, I don't know if that's meaning upgrading it to your level of near net zero, or if it just means upgrading it to a solar electric system on the roof.
And plus, there's always those power sharing tools where you can have like your stove and your electric car on sharing the same 40 amp outlet. So only one is on at a time, and you can prioritize, let's say, your stove over the car. Right. So when you come home, even though your car is plugged in, you turn on your stove, it will cancel the power going to the car for that period of time. And as soon as the stove is thoroughly turned off, and then the car gets the connection again. So you don't necessarily have to upgrade your panel by simply putting in that somebody's power diverter. You're probably better able to speak to those power diverters, Gordon, than I am.
Yes, and I do, thank you. And yes, it's called an interlock, and they are available through a company called AC Dandy, who's an electrical manufacturer in Wetaskiwin. Yes, I am about to convert my own house, an Energuide 80 house built in 1986, to be all electric. I'll dump the gas line and get an electric car and a large solar electric system and keep my service at 100 amperes. But I am an electrical engineer and I know the regulations and how and the code and how to do this. So it is indeed possible. But interlocks are an important part of this so that you don't overload the panel board. But also some of the car chargers these days can monitor the load on the panel board, on the service to the house. And when you're sleeping at night and there's nothing else on, it'll charge your car very quickly. And then when you turn on the stove and the coffee maker and stuff, it'll back off on those automatically in order to not overload your panel board. So I think these technologies are very important to be able to allow all of us to get to a net zero electricity and an EV with 100 amp service without upgrading to a 200 amp service. And that'll save a lot of money and it'll save the electricity company some headaches.
So I'm going to comment on that as well because I have an 70-year-old home and I've been upgrading it with significant solar. And basically, it comes down to how big is the inverter. So Adrian, I believe you have a 10 kilowatt AC inverter on your home, or is it 10?
And the DC array is 10.5 kilowatt DC on the roof, and then the inverter maxes out at 8 kilowatt AC.
Oh, at 8. Okay, right. So that's where you get your 40 amp breaker. I have a bigger inverter and I have a bigger breaker. So it's going to depend. Probably the best way to deal with that to the person asking the question is to contact a solar installer in your area and have them come out and do an assessment. And not only will they give you a free assessment, they'll tell you approximately how much solar your home can support, but they'll also say what is practical with your particular home's electrical system, and they'll also know what rebates are available. So that would be my recommendation on that.
Yep, I agree. Also, it needs to be noted that there's a $40,000 interest-free loan from the federal government for retrofits that should be coming out later this year. So that could be used for solar or the honeycomb blinds or better windows, air tightness, all of those things. That's very important. And also the Alberta government in about 2017 or so brought in something called the Clean Energy Improvement Program. And that allows municipalities to offer the Clean Energy Improvement Program, where you get a loan for your solar or your efficiency through a bank, but you pay it back through your property taxes. So the municipality has to then pass a bylaw saying that they will join the program. And I know the city of Devon, if you look under myciep.ca, you'll find all the information about it, but there's about a dozen or so municipalities. I know Edmonton is going that way. We're not there quite yet. Calgary, I'm not sure that they've done it yet, but it's a very significant thing for it to go back, paid back through your property taxes. And the key is to then set the loan system up so that the savings from efficiency and solar then pay off the loan. So there's never any payback issue then, because it's not your money, it's the bank's money. So it's something very, very significant that's happening in Alberta right now, coupled with the $40,000, of course, and the $5,000 greener home, I think you called it, grant.
Correct. Yeah, greener homes grant.
Greener homes, yes. So there's a lot of great things happening now, and I expect with the solar home tour next year, we'll see a lot of people have taken advantage of this and have their homes on the tour so that they can show what they've done.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick, Gordon.
Yes.
For anybody who is interested in those devices that allow you to share loads with EV and another device, I put links for 4 different companies that are CSA Canadian rated devices that you can ask your electrician about using in your own home.
Thank you for doing that, Shane. That's great. We have a couple more minutes left, don't we, Andrew?
Yes, we do. We're just coming up to 6 minutes left.
I'd also like to ask about your electric lawnmower. Could you mention that? How do you like it? Is it noisy, easy to use? This is a battery one, isn't it? Not one with a long cord.
Oh, look at that
It's the
beautiful lawn.
Eagle. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's the Eagle lawnmower. It's the 56 volt. And yeah, it's super easy. It's like you press a safety button and the power button, and it's it's quarter the sound of having a gasoline engine. There's no fumes. And yeah, and we typically power it during the day when there's a charge up the battery before we use it with solar power. So I like to say that the sun grows my grass and the power of the sun cuts my grass too.
That's wonderful. And did you
get a
say
trimmer and stuff, works with the same battery too.
And did you say it was 56 volts?
Exactly, yeah. It's got all the power of a gasoline engine. Like you wouldn't tell the difference if you're using a gas powered lawnmower or battery power.
And it's quite a bit quieter.
Oh yeah, like 10% of the noise that comes from a gas powered lawnmower is just won't say you barely hear it, but it's definitely significantly less.
And no oil changes, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. And even the same battery goes in the trimmer and a leaf blower, and and the tools themselves are relatively cheap. Once you buy the first battery pack with your first tool, you can get a chainsaw and stuff, and yeah, especially compared to two-stroke and how polluting they are, it's a great way to convert over your garden tools.
How did you decide, with all of the upgrades you did to the house, how did you go about deciding which ones to choose and which ones not to choose?
Well, we're still kind of working through the list. With that federal Greener Homes grant, we're hoping to get the air source heat pump, and the dock and fit is very reasonably priced and works in cold climates too. And we might still keep the gas furnace there as the auxiliary power for the coldest days, but I reckon we can electrify most of our heating through the heat pump. And they're about 250% efficient year round if you look at it over the year. Yeah, I guess between budget and return on investment in terms of return on insulation value is how we went through them. And I get those blinds, like they were only maybe 2,000 or 2,500 to do virtually all the house with blinds, and not expensive. And yet it really makes a difference to how much insulation you gain from your window point.
So how close do you think you could get to net zero with all the other things you could do?
At the moment, we're at, say, we went down to we're at 34 gigajoules right now. When we bought the house, we were 95. So that's with the heat pump, hot water tank, and the solar. We're looking at doing the air source heat pump. I guess will get us down to around 19 or 20 gigajoules per year. And we're also looking at doing a drain water heat recovery on the water that goes out through the stack. We have a main stack in the basement that has 2 showers feeding into it. And we reckon we can certainly drop that again. And then if we look at some double insulating some of the walls, I suspect we'll get to net zero that way.
Well, I sure hope you're going to be on the tour next year too, because it'll be wonderful to see how close you're progressing to net zero, and costs, of course, and how you found the equipment to operate and reliability and things like that. It's a wonderful story that you're a leadership that you're showing for everybody to be able to do this.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly aim to be here, that's for sure. Hopefully in person next year.
Yes. Well, yeah. Person would be very, very significant. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd like, just in a moment before we go on to the next presentation, I'd like to thank you very much, Adrian, for all the work you've done on the house and the video that you produced with Andrew. I'd like to thank the silver sponsor, 4 Elements, who helps people plan out their net zero house and their energy efficient house. Innotech Windows and Doors, who can supply wonderfully efficient windows and doors for super energy efficient house. Skyfire Energy, who of course is one of Alberta's leading solar installers. Calgary City of Energy, the City of Calgary system, the city of Calgary and all the great work they're doing in helping the citizens of Calgary move towards low energy, and the Solar Club, which is a number of retailers around the province who offer you 25.85 cents per kilowatt hour for the electricity that you export in the summertime, and then low rate in the wintertime. Thank you so much for all of our Calgary sponsors.
And the Skyfire Energy and the Solar Club were both represented by Adrian's home today. All right, so just wait for to the top of the minute here, and then we're going to move on to our next home. So let me just get ready.
And so if anybody has any questions on these homes, please send them to Quizmaster. That's me. Or you can send them to info@ecosolar.ca, and you can send them throughout the week if you want, and we'll respond to you.
Okay, our next home is the Balmoral, and it's actually a net zero energy home, not net zero ready. And this was under construction when the homeowner prepared this video. What we're going to do is we'll go through this video first to see an introduction to the home, and then we'll come back and we've got some more current pictures to follow up after this. So let's watch the video to start. This is just an intro slide. It'll come up in a second here. There we go.
Hey everybody, I'm Glenn. Welcome to Project Leo. This is being built with Homes by Sorensen and Nickel Design. And so let me take you on a walk through it. It's a passive house. So the initial concept of the house was that we wanted to make a net zero house where the entire embodied carbon as well as the operational carbon was quantified so that we could try to reduce our build GHGs as well. And so if you look behind you here, this is our school, which is kind of like our main view. They're currently facing south. The reason that we've chosen that is to try to have some form of constant south exposure for the solar, and the zoning we're hoping is that it's going to keep us from anything being built here in the future that will block our sun. As you can see, the two units are staggered. So the front unit here is where my mom will be living, and we've staggered it so that our back unit is higher so that we both get solar capture as well. That kind of allows her to age in place a little better because there's fewer staircases. But the two houses are joined and they share some of the utilities. So if you come on with me, I'll take you on a tour of the general layout and some of the features. So you can see here one of our awnings. That's to kind of get some shading during the summer months for these big south-facing windows. Here we have an Initech door. This has a multi-locking function so that it can get us a little tighter air seal. We're going for passive house low energy certification. So that means we have to beat 0.6 air exchanges as well as some energy use guidelines. So over here we have the Initech Temperate Climate Passive Certified Windows, I believe they're called. This one opens for some passive cooling. These are the main south-facing windows. And so that front unit, that south-facing, will kind of be heated through here and soak into these concrete floors. There's concrete floors on every single level throughout the entirety of the house. Everything is concrete floors. So this area will be her living room and her kitchen, as well as a water closet. And we've kind of designed everything in the house so the areas that are the main solar capture areas are the areas where people are going to spend the most amount of time in order to get the best efficiency out of passive lighting and kind of make the spaces that they're in a little bit more enjoyable. So yeah, if you come with me, this will be her main entrance. So that's gonna kind of be a deck area, but we have to have a front door for kind of the look of the house. But this will be the area that she uses the most to enter. So we have a closet here, again another Initech door. We've separated the doors so that our unit to enter it will walk down that way, and her unit to enter it will walk down this way, just to give us a little bit of privacy. Because the privacy for us as multi-generational living is fairly important. So this is where you kind of get into our unit. Luckily there's no drywall here, so we can see that right now. But as I walk you down here, we're gonna be walking down these stairs here, then through the basement, and then we'll be coming up those stairs over there, and then going up those stairs to the top, just to kind of give you hopefully some degree of understanding, since you can't be here in person. So if you come on downstairs, this area here will be her main bathroom. And over here will be a mixture of a spare bedroom, an office, and potentially another TV room. So we kind of tried to make some of the areas multifunctional in order to save both on the materials as well as the cost. So any area where we wouldn't be using more consistently, we tried to make into a multifunctional room. So that one's kind of hers, as well as the storage space and office over there. This is her master bedroom. So again, with the passive lighting, anywhere that we would be spending quite a bit of time, we've tried to have on the south side of the house, or at least have a little bit of extra passive lighting. This area also solar captures for her, and then this will be her walk-in closet area. And then if you come this way, so in here we have a shared utility closet. I'll try to move into an area maybe where you can see me a little better. So we'll have a shared utility closet here. That's to reduce some of the costs for some of the expensive things. So we'll have a sand and hot water, heat pump hot water tank, I believe, here. That's gonna feed both units for hot water. It's got a little bit better energy usage out of it. We have Life Breath HRV. This unit feeds my mom's area. We have one over there as well. And then a shared electrical panel. So this will serve as a storage room, potentially a workout room, but also a shared utility closet. We'll have a shared washer dryer here with a ventless dryer because we can't vent out of the house for the passive. And then this will be the sound insulated wall right here. And then our solar hookup will be over there next to the panel. A little gray dude. And then if you come through here, you can see our unit. This is just going to be a storage area for us. So this will stay an unfinished basement for now. This is our Life Breath HRV system. Nothing too exciting down here, except for I'll show you the wall system here, which is the real part of this house. Now, Axel has another much more professional video surrounding this, but for now I'll just give you a kind of a brief description. We have SI Construction Foundation here. So because we were trying to be mindful of our GHGs in the actual construction, we've chosen to use that because it reduces our concrete, and the concrete has quite a bit more GHGs in its production. We go to the structural component. Everything is structurally on the outside of the house so that we could keep better thermal, or keep thermal bridging from happening. And then we go to a timber frame. This has 3 studs. So this is an internal utility stud. This is the actual structural stud. We have blown cellulose in the walls here, and then another stud on the back of this. But again, yeah, Axel will have a much better video on that portion in a little bit here. So if you continue with me upstairs. So again, concrete on every level. We're kind of back where we were before, but this will be our master bedroom. We have a north-facing window here just to get a little bit of passive lighting in here. So we hopefully can use a little less light. Everything in the house, there's no gas hookup whatsoever. So everything will be electric throughout the entirety of the house. So we've tried to be cognizant of where we put windows that provide us some lighting. We also have a window here that also opens to get some cool, some passive cooling throughout this area, since we'll be sleeping in here. And then you have our master bathroom over here. Nothing too exciting in this area. And then over here is our spare bedroom. We'll also be using this as a closet, though this has been kind of planned for a closet later as well in our master bedroom. But this area has been planned for a closet as well as a spare bedroom because, again, any areas where we wouldn't use as often, we've tried to make multifunctional. So if you come to our entrance here, currently you're looking at me south. We're going to be spinning to the north. So we'll be entering through the north of the house. This is our main entrance for the back unit. And out here we have, again, another Initech door. Here we'll have all the rainwater from the entirety of the house will be captured off of the roof systems. It'll be piped down through the side of the house over here, and then it'll come into some water barrels or water cubes that sit on top of our deck here. And we've raised it on the deck to get a little bit of pressure to feed the garden from it, using kind of gravity fed systems. So this area back here will be a mixture of a food garden and native vegetation to try to reduce on the amount of water or allow us to actually make food for ourselves. But this will be a shared area for the front unit and the back unit. And then if you come inside, we'll go up to our top unit. So again, everything up here is timber framing with blown cellulose. We have concrete floors, and this area is going to be our main solar capture area. So that's why we have these big south-facing windows. So this will be our kitchen over here. That window doesn't open. We have a water closet over there with a window that does open. And then we have a window that opens here and a window that opens here. Again, to try to get that passive cooling. You can see here the tilt and turn function of these Initech windows, so we control the amount of passive cooling that we get. So this one and that one. And then if we go out onto the deck here, you can really see the staggered design here because this is my mom's roof. And now I'll take you up to see the area where the solar is planned. So hopefully I'm getting the right shot here, but you can see now this area up here, the peak of the roof has been back set so that we can get as much south-facing slope as possible. So that entirety of that roof will be loaded with solar panels, and then this east side will be loaded with solar panels. In total, it should be about a 15 kilowatt system, we estimate right now. Nickel Design has done some estimations for us with PHPP, and we kind of calculate somewhere in that vicinity. And then following the entirety of, the entirety of the construction of the house, we'll be getting a life cycle assessment done to kind of check what the total embodied carbon as well as the operational carbon of the units is. The SSRIA has been fantastically great in giving us some funding for that, and so we'll be doing that. And yeah, we hope to get those numbers out as well as some financial numbers in order to show people kind of what the cost of building something with this level of greenhouse gases is. So we hope you enjoyed the tour, and we'll pass you off to Axel here in a bit to tell you about the walls from Homes by Sorensen. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Glenn. Basically, I have some additional pictures here that we've put together. And Glenn, I'm thinking what we should do here is we'll page through some of these pictures, and you and I can discuss this. If anybody has questions, they can bring the questions into to the chat, and we'll get a little bit of a discussion going here as we go. So, Glenn, here's some of the pictures of your home. This is obviously the elevation. This would be from the back, I believe. This would be the north side.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I think my video's off, Andrew. I think I need.
It'll come. Somebody has to do
Okay.
that for you.
Gotcha.
And then this is really interesting to me. So we've really only seen this on the tour once before, and that was in Edmonton last weekend. And this is a special type of basement construction with steel studs and styrofoam. Glenn, do you want to tell us what that is? And please define the acronyms that you're using.
Sure. Still says my video's disabled, but Axel's here with me, so he can kind of get into the technical.
Okay. So what's this? What is this system called? There we go. Hello, Axel.
Yeah, hi guys. That basement system there is the SI foundation system. I believe SI is for super insulated. They're out of Edmonton there, and that wall there is an 11.25-inch thick wall system. There's 6-inch structural steel studs to the inside face of that wall. So there's an added 5.25 inches of EPS on the outside of that stud face for a complete thermal break through that wall system there. So the benefits of this wall here is not only from a greenhouse gas or GHG target there, but we don't use any concrete in the wall here. It's just in the footing. So that's a lot of concrete to not be pouring in your house there. Also, in terms of a space saver, the 11.25 inches, it entirely is made up of insulation other than the structural steel studs. So having an 8-inch site cast foundation wall, you lose a lot of space with very minimal R value with a typical foundation wall there. On the picture you're showing there, on the outside of the wall, you get these little PVC nailing strips, and those nailing strips are to help side your house there with.
Okay. Now, how do you seal this foundation? This expanded polystyrene. How do you seal the sections together?
So the sections come in 4-foot sections.
Okay.
And they're basically just like great big Lego blocks. They come in 4-foot sections. There's a steel track that gets bolted to your concrete footing that has to be poured extremely level, because basically you're playing off the level of that footing. That's one of the tricks to the process here, is pouring a level footing. So you bolt a metal track to that footing, and then you put the panels into that track, and you screw right into them. That connects the bottom of it, and then there's a Z track that goes on top of the wall, and this Z track fastens to the front face, and then a 2x6 goes into that Z track and fastens in, and then your subfloor gets attached to that 2x6 sill plate on top.
So waterproofing wise, these are actually then, are they glued together in some way, and is there an exterior waterproofing added?
Just like ICF block, we put on a peel and stick waterproof membrane to the outside.
Yeah, I don't have a picture of that, but yes, okay, great. So this is now above grade. So now this is the double stud wall you put together. Perhaps you explain that for us, Axel.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the double stud wall is not a super innovative technique here at this point, but what I do think is very innovative of our house here is how we tied in that double studded wall with the SI foundation. The exterior 2x4 wall that you see there is a non-load bearing wall. The interior of that is our load bearing wall. So
this would be load bearing in here?
You got it. That stud there is load bearing. You got it.
And this one's not.
Yeah. So that allowed us to have our floor system structure stop at the interior double studded wall, and at our floor system on the basement, there's just a great big foam block that went around the entire subfloor. So right from the footing all the way up to the roof, we have a continuous insulation, and there's the only part that carries over was the floor sheathing. So in terms of a really solid thermal break within this house here, this one provided that for sure. So
Okay, so here's some of a little bit more of the structure going in. So I can see the double stud walls around the outside.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and
And then this is, oh, sorry. This is, yeah, go ahead.
well, I was gonna talk, you know, I think you probably have a picture of the insulation coming up here, correct?
I do, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I'll hold
So
off.
this is the exterior just in process. Also notice you've got some really nice overhangs here. This would be for passive solar for shading, is that right?
Correct, yeah. So in the summertime, that window will see not a lot of sun. And then on top of that, there's some very large trees out front.
Yeah.
And when they leaf out in the summertime, it really blocks sun from getting into that window there.
Okay. So here's some interior spacing showing a bit of the, oh, and there it is right there. If you can see in his video. Now your video is going to be small, Glenn and Axel, so people will only just see the thumbnail.
Yeah, there's a thumbnail of some trees.
Yeah, thumbnail, some trees. Yeah, right. That's across the road in the schoolyard, is it?
That's like right in front of our house.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on the boulevard. Okay.
Schoolyard past that, yeah.
Okay. Now here's some interior pictures showing some of the insulation. This looks like the exterior or the upper floor.
Correct, yeah. So the wall that you see there, that's our mechanical wall. Behind that is our double studded wall that was filled with dense back cellulose. That was a 12-inch void or a 12-inch cavity of dense back cellulose. And then we just put a simple R12 fiberglass bed in the mechanical wall there that you see.
I see.
Yeah.
Here's some window pictures.
In that ceiling there that you can see there too, we strapped the ceiling out as well.
I see.
On that previous picture.
We're going to get a better picture of that in a couple of pictures. So I'll
Okay,
come back to that. I have a few questions about that. Here's some window pictures. This again is that north wall of the house.
Yeah, then that you can see there, that's our Intertech window. Great window to work with. We really enjoyed those. And especially for the price point for what you're getting there, compared to some of their competition there, I thought was great. And on that window there, we used a dimonic caulking on the inside, and then we used vapor open Siga tape on the outside to air seal that. And then we over insulated the frames, which you don't see in that picture there.
Probably a little later.
Yeah.
All right, now this is your air barrier. Tell us a bit about this. I've not seen this particular brand before, so tell me more about how this works.
So that air barrier and vapor barrier you see there, that's the Certainteed membrane.
Okay.
From Certainteed, and it is the smart membrane in that it will be vapor open to the inside if the relative humidity within that cavity space reaches 60% or above. So that way, with a thick wall system, if you ever have any moisture issues, this will help dry the wall out to the inside. And obviously the wall will be drying out to the outside as well, but it just gives you a little bit more dryability within the wall system.
That's very interesting. I would be very interested in figuring out that technology. All right, so here's the blower door test going. So I've got a couple pictures of this. Tell us about your air changes per hour on this home.
So the air changes, we finished off with our pre-board air exchange here of a 0.45. So obviously we're yet to get our final score once everything's done, but the way that this house was air sealed, we're probably not going to be looking at too much different than a 0.45 here in this house. Yeah, so that was our air exchange score there.
So now this is a good picture showing the ceiling. So and this is on the main floor, but so what you're doing is you've actually put the the vapor barrier up, and then you're building another, what do you call it, utility studs inside of that, so that you can hang the drywall and do the electrical. Now, is that just for to maintain your air tightness?
Well, so in this house, we were trying to not allow our mechanicals to be within our be outside of our envelope. We wanted it inside, and just to give us that added protection from harming our air barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, so stick with me here on this question for a minute, because I'm actually gonna start asking you about the thickness of your wall. So you have a 12-inch double stud wall for your insulation, and then on the inside you have another 2x4 set of studs that's used to hold your drywall, and you've got another 3.5 inches of insulation on that. And then on the outside you have your plywood sheathing, then you have strapping, and then you have your siding on top of that. So this wall must be 12, 14, 16 inches thick.
The three 2x4 studs walls in there, that comes out to 16. And then you got an extra 1.5 inches of exterior, and then another 1/2 inch of drywall inside that there. And
so these are really, really thick walls then.
There's my arm in comparison to the wall.
Okay, very good. So it's 1 cubit thick. Perfect.
I think you're right though. By the time you finish out, you're about 20 inches with siding and drywall here.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, and then here's the picture of the house getting close to completion. Got siding on, you've got windows in. You haven't got the steps in yet, but this is a fairly recent picture, I believe. When we did that video, I believe that was over a month ago, and this is within the last week or so.
Yeah. Our possession date here is about July 31st, the very end of July here. So we're getting closer here.
Okay, well, just a couple of fun pictures to finish. Here's, I believe it's Emily on the roof, and enjoying so the actual deck is between the mother-in-law house and your house, and there's a little space I can see just behind Emily. So that's your balcony, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's very European. and then here's the view from that second floor looking across to the school. Okay, that's all the pictures we have. At this point, we've got about 10 minutes, 12 minutes left for questions. So I'm going to call on Gordon, our quizmaster, to see if there's any questions that have come in from other people. Thanks for that discussion. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Glenn. This is incredibly fascinating. I sure hope you come back for the tour next year, because I'd love to see how things have worked out, how you've progressed. Please, if anybody has any questions, send them to me, the Quizmaster, on the chat helpline. On the Quizmaster line. I do have some questions from Donovan in Seashelt, BC. Thank you for calling us, for watching in from Seashelt, Donovan. Questions. Can you explain the rationale behind the concrete floors throughout? For example, are you using in-floor hydronic heating? And is the concrete choice based on the thermal mass characteristics of the concrete floors?
Yeah, absolutely. The concrete floors is just based on the thermal massing within the house. There is no hydronic heating here. There's not a lot of heat load within this house, so hydronic heating would have been a little overkill for this house.
Exactly.
It was first and foremost the thermal mass, and secondly the aesthetics of it.
Thank you. Also, what is the floor covering finishing, if anything is planned?
The floor finish here is a cream polish. So they just go through with they kind of sand it down, but the cream doesn't get exposed. The cream stays on it, and they just polish the top layer there.
Okay, so we get to see that next year on the tour then.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Another question from Donovan was, what is the roof surface being covered with?
The roof surface here is being covered with an architectural asphalt shingle here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So are those readily available?
those are readily available. That's a very standard roof that's been put on here.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Another question is, were there any concerns with snow getting trapped in the upper balcony, and what drainage provisions were made for it?
The upper balcony has a 2% slope on it, and it has also a vinyl membrane that's wrapped up the wall about a foot. And it's a mono-sloped deck, so that we could have our venting. It is a vented deck. It's not an unvented roof space there below it. So it has a pretty good slope all to the one side that gets captured into a gutter and goes out to the rain barrels there out back.
So you have rain barrels.
Yeah. The customer plans on doing capturing the rainwater.
Yeah, which is good. Let's just see here. Any more questions? Who was it that designed your house and helped you decide on what to include in it to achieve your goals?
This was done by a guy named Kevin Brown. His company is Nickel Design.
Okay.
He's a certified passive house planner.
So does this meet the passive house standard?
This does, yeah. We have this meets the low energy standard of passive house.
Oh yes.
The moment that we added, we got funding from the SSRA. The moment we added that, we got that funding. We switched from a Rheem hot water tank to a Sandin hot water tank, and the Sandin was just efficient enough to get us over that threshold of I believe it's 30 kilowatts per meter squared per year.
Right.
So we are meeting this house here meets the low energy standard of passive house, and it's also passive house plus because we are a net zero house here as well.
Adrian, you said SSRA. What's that stand for?
I forget this acronym here. I'm sorry.
Did you say SSRIA?
Yeah, Smart Sustainable.
Resilient Infrastructure Association.
Yeah, sorry to the SSRA. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to be careful with acronyms. Not everybody knows what we're talking about. So please define when you can.
Okay, sorry about that.
And you said the house is due for occupancy at the end of July.
Yeah, we'll be kind of August 1st, August 5th kind of area.
And are you including any monitoring of your house?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing, so we have external weather monitors as well as internal monitors. So we're going to be comparing the two of those against each other. And then part of the SSRA funding is that I'm going to be doing, I guess, data capture on that for about 2 years.
Oh, yes.
And then we're going to do financial assessments, a life cycle analysis, which for people is like a comparison of both the operational greenhouse gases as well as the greenhouse gases it actually took to build the project. So we're going to be doing a life cycle analysis on that, and we're going to be doing kind of a full energy model over those 2 years.
It'll really, really be important to see the results of your monitoring and for you to present it on the tour. This is very, very significant leadership from you, and I thank you for it.
Thanks, yeah.
Another question that came in, is your solar PV system being sized to cover your electric vehicle charging as well as all the household energy footprint?
Not that we know right now. We kind of just overshot a little bit from what we expected, but the PHPP modeling, I believe that Kevin thinks it'll be slightly better than what we put the panels on for. So we did put a hookup on the back for an eventual EV to be charged off the back of it. So it's already in there, but we might have to strap on a couple extra panels.
You need to let our listeners know what PHPP means.
Sorry, that's the modeling software that they use to, the Passive House Planning Program. It's the software that they use for actually modeling the Passive House design.
I think it's a spreadsheet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a very complex spreadsheet that's pretty, if you're a nerd, it's pretty sweet.
It's very sweet.
Yeah, and apparently from what I hear from Kevin of Nickel Design, it's so accurate that they basically input the numbers that you've planned, and then as long as you have photo representation that you followed that model, it's so accurate that you don't even have to do testing afterwards to get your certification.
Oh,
so
yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, that's really excellent. It's really good to see how Passive House Standard is being used more and more and combined with PV to get to the net zero at the same time. Another question from Donovan. I hugely appreciate his questions coming in. He's really keeping track of things here, which is great. So he's asking, can I ask if the community solar and virtual net, if community solar and virtual net metering is available in Calgary? The Passive House Standard allows this for off-site electricity production being credited to one's electric utility account. Although I would jump in, if I may, and say that we have net billing in Alberta. We don't have net metering. And but because Passive House permits it, that's okay. But off-site electricity is never credited to our electricity utility account here, which is fine. Do you have any comments on that?
No, that sounds like you know better than me.
Okay.
All right. Well, my question, Andrew here, I'm just going to throw in, we've had a couple of discussions about service size to new homes. What is the electric service to this home, Glenn?
30? 200 amp.
It is 200 amps. Okay.
Yeah.
And is it, that would have been an upgrade to that site from previous. So do you have overhead power lines coming to the back of the house?
Yeah, it's an overhead service here, correct.
Okay, that's usually easier to get an update to 200 amps on an overhead service. Usually. Right. Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. Any other questions from anybody? Please send them through to the chat.
To Quizmaster at the chat.
Quizmaster on the chat. Thank you. And Adrian and Glenn. Sorry, Axel and Glenn. My mistake. Did you consider using the aero barrier system to try to seal the house a little bit more?
No. We wanted. I guess. From where I've come from, we haven't been using aero barrier. We've just been trying to do as good a job as possible with acoustic and poly detailing. I think maybe just the cost of the aero barrier doesn't really didn't really feel worth it for me, I guess, on this project here. If that's
well, you already got to 0.45, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess part of the thing I'd add here is like the cost for us is really an important part, because what we were shooting for is to try to get something really affordable where we could accommodate a lot of people and aim for that to be a model of cumulative effects. Cumulative effects being the idea that you add together a bunch of changes to make big changes. So making it more affordable is a very important piece to us.
Understood.
Thank you for your leadership on this.
Yeah, thank you for all your questions and organizing everything, and thanks to all those sponsors, because I'm pretty sure we're using all of them. So,
so your house is a representative for our sponsors, Innotech Windows and Doors. So thank you for showing us their windows and doors, and yeah, that was really good. I really like those windows. So I'm gonna have to look at some of those for myself.
Yeah, Skyfire is doing our panels and 4 elements
good.
to the portable test. And,
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay, good. So you are a fully sponsored home. Excellent.
I guess so.
There's another question here, if that's okay.
Sure.
One last.
How is temperature controlled in the home?
Yeah, so that's entirely done via the passive modeling as much as we can. There is a baseboard heater in each place, but we don't anticipate having to turn that on. So it'll be all through the physics of the sun and the concrete floors.
Cool.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Glenn and Axel, for showing your home today. We really appreciate that, and we especially appreciate you going the extra mile to do the recording and actually modeling and checking the model and coming up with data on the home. It's really important to us that those kinds of models get done, and so that we can see how homes actually perform. So thank you for putting in the extra effort to collect the data and to do that. I'm now going to move on, however. Our next home is home number 3, site number 3. And this is it's called the Inglewood Retrofit. And we have Ken is going to help us today to show us about his home. And this is an older home that's been updated significantly. And so we have a video interview that was prepared earlier to introduce the home. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that video interview, and where Ken and I will have a discussion. Oh, look, I'm wearing the same shirt. Ken and I will have a discussion to introduce the home, and then we'll come back for questions after that. So here's that interview that was recorded earlier. All right. Hi there, and welcome to the EcoSolar Home Tour. My name is Andrew Mills, and today we'll be talking about a deep energy retrofit home in the Inglewood neighborhood in Calgary. With me today is Ken Newell, who's the homeowner of the home. Welcome to the EcoSolar Home Tour, Ken.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Your home is an example of renovating rather than rebuilding. Essentially, it's an example of what we would call a deep energy retrofit. So give me a bit of background, Ken, why you would choose to renovate your home like this. What were the main things you were trying to accomplish?
Well, it started off with a couple really big decisions. After buying the place, realizing that it actually had quite a few things wrong with it. It's an old home, inner city home, late 1940s, early 1950s. Very energy inefficient, and just old components, in terms of wiring, plumbing, and so on. So lots of issues. But at the same time, the home had some nice features, as an old home does, some character. And so it started off with the big question of, is it better to just tear it down and start from scratch, or work with what we have and see if we can make it work? The other thing was the home was a little bit less than 1,000 square feet. So for a family of 4, by today's standards, that's a fairly small home, but thought we could make it work. So set out to see what we could do.
Ken, what's the EnerGuide rating of this home? Do you have any, did you get it tested, or do you have any historical data that supports this?
Yeah, and in fact, there was a government program at the time where you could get a little bit of money back on certain energy efficiency upgrades, and so, but you had to have a before and after test. And so when we bought the house, it tested at 53, which is actually pretty bad. But
that's under the old system of EnerGuide.
Yeah, that's right. The old.
I think you've got a picture. I think you've got a picture of the old house here, don't you?
Yeah. So
there it is.
This is how it looked when we bought it, and so it came in at 53. Like I say, this is pretty bad, but in fact, pretty typical for a house of this vintage. So once the renovations were done, at least the first stage of renovations, it was retested and it came in at 79. Since then, we've done more work and added renewable energy. So now probably well over 80 and 80. On the old scale.
That's a really good result. One of the things you did you shared with me your energy rating. And under the new EnerGuide system, which measures it in gigajoules, you'd be somewhere around 93, which is actually not bad. That's pretty close to what a new home might be. But again, pretty good result. Moving from a 53 to a 79 on the old EnerGuide is pretty substantial. So let's take a look at some of the features of your home. Tell us, what do you think the standout feature would be of your home?
Well, I think what I'm really happy with is like I say, it's an older home, and there were some nice things about it. You've got the original fir and birch hardwood floors, an old lath and plaster kind of feature wall in the kitchen, wood windows. So things that are kind of neat about an old house, but at the same time needing to be comfortable and way more energy efficient. So I think we've achieved the balance.
Very nice. So when we build our energy efficient homes, we make a series of energy efficient choices. What would you say were the main choices you had to make when you upgraded this home?
I think starting with just opening up the home, it was fairly small rooms, quite dark, really not taking advantage of a nice southern exposure on the house. So the first thing, I guess, during the renovation was actually opening up walls. Now putting in the bay window on the south side. Now we got sun all the way through, winter sun actually all the way through the house. So opening up the house, making it more open, much brighter. So that was internally, and externally. So we say a deep energy retrofit. So we're looking, at least cutting energy costs in half. So this is a pretty extensive renovation. Took the siding off. The siding was distressed anyways, no vapor barrier, really poor insulation. 2x4 walls on this main floor with wood chips for insulation. I did look it up. I think it's got an R value of 4 or something. It's pretty bad, but not uncommon for a house of this vintage.
I had an old house. I didn't even have wood chips. It was just empty, the spaces in those walls.
Yeah, well, and in fact, the basement walls, so they lifted the house in the 1970s, and you can see that basement section, a good 3 feet above grade. That was in the basement, which was renovated. It was just drywall on concrete, no insulation at all.
Wow, okay.
So again, not uncommon for work that was done over the last 50, 60 years. So it needed a lot of upgrading, and probably actually in hindsight, you can get some kind of economies of scale. I mean, just from the size of the project, I mean, it was kind of everything had to be done. And so it made sense to just do everything at once. So the big thing is insulation. So we added 2 inches of extruded polystyrene top to bottom. So that's right from soffit to below grade. So dug around the foundation, 2 inches of foam on the outside of the planking of the house, and then re-stucco over the top of it. So insulate the walls. In the attic, we doubled the thickness of the insulation that was in there. This is just a blown-in fiber insulation. An easy project actually for a weekend do-it-yourself kind of project. Rented a blower from a big box store, building supply store, a couple bags of insulation. Doubled the thickness. It was probably about 6 inches that was in there. Now it's about 12 to 14 inches of insulation. At the same time, we were trying to make a pretty small house work for 4 people. So we're really conscious of space. And so here, extended the ceiling joists and put planking down in the attic. And it's actually used for Now, this is unconditioned space, of course, so it is hot and cold up there. But things like Christmas decorations or seasonal tires and things like that. So making use of every square inch. Installed this drop-down ladder to access the attic. But the point I wanted to make, just to make the house work, it just meant making sure that every square inch of the house is being used.
I get it. That's good.
And then, as I mentioned, so new stucco on the outside of the house, new windows all the way around, all double paned, low E, gas-filled windows. So the house went from being basically drafty all the time to being in a situation where it is probably too tight, airtight to actually be healthy, buildup of humidity and so on. So installed a heat recovery ventilator. It's a fairly small one. This one's a Fantech. And so it's pulling from downstairs around the laundry room, downstairs bathroom, and then the intake, fresh air from outside, actually is just fed into the plenum of the furnace and distributed through the ducting of the house. So always a little bit of inside air being taken off and a little bit of fresh air being taken in, with some heat exchange in the process.
Interesting.
So the other thing I mentioned, the windows, all the windows were changed. The old windows, Andrew, I don't know if on your place, if you remember the old like sash and pulley, like the ropes and pulley type windows.
Yeah, I had those.
So terrible for efficiency, lots of leaks, single pane. And so
I remember that. I remember the curtains moving on a windy day. It was that drafty up here.
Yeah. So they had to go. And but the thing about the old windows is they were wood, and they had the mullins, the little wood trim. Right. So it looked like an old house, and so we were able to get new windows. These have a fir trim on them as well, and actually look very similar to the old ones that we took out, but way more energy efficient.
Right.
And the other thing is even just adding drapes and window blinds. These are a Hunter Douglas honeycomb blind, and I suppose in retrospect, I might have gone triple pane, which was not that common when I started this renovation. But I think, even things like the window blinds, reasonable cost, but huge difference. Boy, on a really cold winter night or on a really hot summer day, they make a huge difference.
Interesting.
The other thing is, I mentioned making use of every square inch of the house. And so, like, the kids' bedrooms were down the basement, and they didn't like it cool, and I understand that. So the downstairs space, it had potential. It had 8-foot ceilings, it had good-sized windows, and so we could work with it. And so the kids' bedrooms were put downstairs. And I took out the hot water tank. So it replaced the furnace, the old 1960s 60% efficient furnace with a new Carrier high efficiency. I think it's 95, 96% efficient, something like that. Took out the old hot water tank, put in this on-demand hot water heater. So it's they say a combi, so combination. So if there's a requirement for domestic hot water taps anywhere, it's domestic hot water. If there's a call for heating, it becomes a space heater. So
hydronic heating now.
So it's hydronic heat in the basement. So it's a mix of radiators. And these radiators that you see down here, these are Runtel radiators, actually a cast radiator, not aluminum, but quite decorative. And I really like it. So the basement's a mix of radiators and in-floor heating. And so the house is to a large degree heating from the basement up. And so there's still a central furnace, hot air furnace, but a good share of the heat is actually coming from the basement. And that's where we really needed it, because this was actually living space.
So that combi unit, hot water unit. So for the hydronic heating, it circulates the water, and for your household tap water, it just runs it from the city service to the taps, heats it on the way. That's interesting. That's an unusual unit.
Yeah. So it's really like two separate systems.
Okay.
There's a closed loop on the heating circuit, and it's just one loop, not if you're thinking of hydronic heat with all the pumps and zone valves and everything. Our house wasn't big enough to warrant that sophisticated of a system. It's just a single loop around the perimeter of the basement and actually in the floor of both bathrooms upstairs and downstairs.
Interesting.
And so domestic hot water is always the priority. So if someone opens a tap, it becomes a hot water heater. Its second priority is space heating, and it looks at the thermostat and decides if it needs space heating. And I think it's quite a good way of doing it. And I'm in a way, I'm surprised that more older homes don't go this way, because cool basements is a real common issue.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting.
So here's kind of a summary for energy efficiency. I won't go through everything, but like I say, it was pretty extensive. You can see some of the real big ones, like wall insulation, going from 5 to an R16. The basement, we insulated the basement on the outside of the wall and the inside of the wall.
Oh.
Added the heat recovery ventilator, changed out the furnace, changed out the windows, and then a lot of just appliances needed to be updated as well, and that made a big difference. And then some additional things like the landscaping yard, drought-resistant plants, even some of the things in building materials. We used cork flooring in the basement, in the kids' rooms. Upstairs was redone with bamboo flooring. So apparently some of the more sustainable building materials that are out there.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So I won't say I'm net zero, but just keep working towards it. And Andrew, you and I had this discussion the other day. I originally, when I was in the business, solar was quite expensive, and I now have it on the house, but 15 years ago, I might have said, well, why would you spend $10,000 on solar when you can spend half of that on energy efficiency, insulation, say, and get twice the energy savings that you would from solar? Now, 15 years later, it's not quite so simple.
Price of solar is 90% less than what it was even 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't preach that like I used to. I would sort of question why you'd want to spend that much money. But now, thanks to the price decreases and the improvement in technology, that renewable energy component is pretty attractive. And sure, energy conservation, still counts for something. Energy efficiency. I know an old home like this, it's kind of like, why are you putting solar on the roof if you've got the wind blowing through the cracks in your windows, kind of thing. So, but I now it's pretty convincing actually in all these areas. So we might I think we could probably give renewable energy a bigger circle.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and here it is.
Yeah. So the final, I guess the icing on the cake for the renovation was adding in solar. So got the energy consumption way down, and then was always really interested in solar and was in the business years ago. So I think I was one of the first micro connect agreements in the city of Calgary for a residential system.
What year would that have been?
Oh, gee, that was 2008, 2009, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's early on. You bet.
Yeah. I think I had my application in within the first week or two when they opened the new guidelines.
Yeah. Right.
So the system, it's a 4 kilowatt system. It's in pieces. 2 kilowatts on the roof of the house.
Okay.
And and another 2 kilowatts. This is the sun deck on the back side of the house, and so
this is more recent. This is more recent. This one, isn't it?
Yeah. This is a recent upgrade, and you can see from this picture. So these modules are actually bifacial. So the cells work from both the front side of the module and the back side of the module. Mm-hmm. Now, this is on my back deck, so it's not getting a whole lot of sun from the bottom. No. If it was out in a big snow-covered field, it would be okay. But why I got these modules is you can see the transparency. It's not totally clear. It's kind of a clouded glass, so it's kind of a soft light. Because it was a deck, I didn't want it to be a cave. I didn't want it to be a dark, solid roof. And so these modules have these gaps between the cells where a little bit of light's coming through. So it's just a nice soft light on the deck. And at the same time, it can produce up to 2 kilowatts of power.
That's very nice. Nice little pergola.
And then, so that was, this says, so this is the inverter for the solar PV system. This is inside the house. And so basically just a box on the wall. There's a box on the wall for the solar PV system, and there's a box on the wall for the hot water system. So, like I say, trying to make every square inch of the house count. And then this was taken there just a couple weeks ago. So sort of seeing it, just to compare to what it looked like in that first picture when we first bought it. So I think still looks like an old house and has the comfortable feel of a well worn in house, but
nice,
but modern where it counts.
So were there any other features that you wanted to highlight on your home for me today?
I think probably one I didn't mention is just location. I mean, I don't have an electric car or anything really exciting like that, but it is inner city. I'm walking distance to downtown. It's an easy bike ride to work, and so I think location counts for a lot. It's a kind of a cool, hip inner city neighborhood. I have great neighbors, and really, I could get away even without a car.
Interesting. So, what would you say is the most challenging aspect that you found when building this energy efficient home?
I think the tough part in this case is buying the house and realizing that there's a bunch of things that need upgrading, and so it's like, how much do you want to do? And this was a very real world project. I had young kids and working full time and a limited budget and limited time, and so how much time and effort do you want to put into the job? And I think that's the really tough part. Mm-hmm. And in my case, I think because there was so much work that needed to be done, it was better to just do it all at once. So you get some economies of scale. But I think there's this is $150,000 renovation.
Right.
And so a lot of that's new appliances and cosmetic things. So I can't say exactly how much is related to energy efficiency, but that's a pretty big commitment. You can do a lot for a couple $1,000s in terms of blowing insulation, weather stripping, things like that. So I think that's the tough part, and I just think every house is unique.
So what were some of those key costs in that $150,000 upgrade? What would you say were the bigger ones?
A lot of it just the construction inside, opening up walls, some reinforcing in there. There was we had a lot of custom woodwork done, oak cabinets and so on. So so it was really a little bit of everything, upgraded plumbing, upgraded wiring. We had the walls open, so it's you're not going to go back and do those things later. You know, it's just like there was still some like knob and tube wiring in the house, things like that. So I think in our case, it just made sense to just do everything at once. You got a big disposal bin in the backyard. You got contractors on site. It just made sense to do it all at once.
So, is there anything that you would have done differently? Anything that you might have changed?
Yeah, I think like I say, I won't be too hard on myself because real world project and limited time and budget and so on. But I have to say, probably looking back, I kind of wished I'd actually done more at the time. Things like the double pane windows. Well, now triple pane is pretty common. Things like that. So I actually wish I would have done a little bit more. Like I say, it's really hard to go back after you do that work, and you're not going to do a little incremental increase after doing something like this. And if you got a 60, 70-year-old house, you're kind of building it for another 60 or 70 years.
That's right. So was there any particular aspect that you found the most satisfying to complete?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I really love when, especially after these renovations were complete, and people would be walking by on the street, and I'd be out doing yard work or something, and people would say, "Oh, I really love what you've done to your house," or "Gee, we were so sure you were just going to tear it down," and so which really made me feel good. So I think I managed to achieve a pretty good balance.
And which item do you like best of the new house, of the renovated house?
Certainly, I think that feel you get from being in an old house, and then probably the best of the old and the best of the new. And I really enjoy the solar. I suppose you could say it would make more sense to be in a large utility centralized power generation site rather than on the roof of my house. As you can see, some big trees in the back, but you know, it's like you get a lot of satisfaction out of it, and I don't know, it's like good karma for the house, I guess. So I wouldn't be too hard on anybody for being interested in it.
Okay, so let's wrap up. We'll go to the last slide here, Ken, with your pergola. And is there anybody that you want to thank that helped you design or construct your home? Oh, the pergola.
Sure. Yeah, a couple thanks. to Skyfire Energy, which is the solar system, and Romcan Heating. Romcan, I should say, is the Baxi on-demand hot water heater and heating system. And actually, and to my contractor, John Lavoie, who did all the custom woodwork.
Very, very nice. Well, Ken, thanks very much for sharing pictures of your home today. Yes, Ken, thanks a lot for sharing pictures of that home. And that's there's some very interesting things that you've done. Since I also have an old home, I appreciate people who do retrofits and get their homes updated. That's great. So I'm going to hand it over now to Gordon Howell. Gordon, what kind of questions do we have today?
Yes, we do have some questions. Thank you so much, Ken. Can I take you back 20 years to 2001, May the 1st? I have you on my list of the 68th solar electric system that was grid connected in Canada.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, my own house was the 12th, but yours was the 68th. And also, you may remember, of course, British House. And so that was 2000, actually, your house. And 2000, May the 1st. And then British House at Spruce Meadows, 2001, June 1st. And then also the Alberta Government Center. You put a solar PV system on the Alberta Government Center in 2002.
Oh,
and
gee.
I worked on that project also. So
thanks for those reminders. Yeah.
You're a pioneer, just like me. in PV in Alberta.
And you still look so young.
Well, that's what solar does to you, you know, you're anyways.
So Ken, if I might throw in the first question, you did your first solar on your house was 2 kilowatts in 2008, and then you did a recent 2 kilowatts on the pergola. Do you have an idea of what the comparative costs were for both those 2 kilowatt systems? Just the solar, not the structure for the pergola, for example.
Yeah, boy, and actually, Gordon, feel free to jump in here. I just because I'm kind of going off. I'm out. I'm not in the business anymore, but I would say you had mentioned something like a 90% decrease, and I think certainly a 7 in that time, probably a 70% price decrease. It's a huge difference, and it completely changes the economics for anyone now. So. I can't remember exactly, and Gordon probably would have those figures, but it's it's a big difference.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm managing all sorts of questions and stuff here, so I'm only I can't respond precisely to the question. One question though that came in was, what was the total cost of the deep energy retrofit upgrades? Could you remind our listeners about that again?
Sure. That's a bit of a tough one because there's so many things, like I say, that are cosmetic, and there's appliances and there was custom woodwork and so on. I said 150,000, and it was either more or less, I guess, depending on what you include in that. There was new furniture and things. So I would say, I think that 150 is probably not a bad number. There was the downstairs, there's the upstairs, and actually something that I didn't mention in the video, but I should mention because it was part of the renovation. So the house was a little less than 1,000 square feet. And it pretty small for a family of 4, and we looked at adding another layer, but instead just did a little bump out at the back, on the back side where you saw the back deck there. So just did a 12 by 12 bump out that it allowed for a master bedroom upstairs and a separate kids bedroom downstairs. Actually, yeah, thanks, Andrew. You can see in this picture. So this was kind of the one of the later additions in the renovation. Actually, cut a hole in the wall. Did that back corner there, that bump out, as an extra bedroom, and so that's probably one of the bigger costs of the whole renovation. So, maybe 150 is not a bad number, but then, like I say, I mean, things like the insulation, blowing in insulation in the attic, I don't know, I might have spent $100, $200 or something to do that. So it's just a real range, but you get a lot of labor costs and contractors and so on, and it goes up in a hurry. So, it is a tough decision, and you think, wow, I could buy in the suburbs and it would be brand new and all these things would be done, so on. But I think a lot of it too is the chance to do it in your own style, and like I say, the house is not that big, so that kind of helps keep the costs under control.
Yeah. And look, there's lots of values. You did mention that you could walk to work. I mean, what's the value of that? I would submit it's huge in terms of exercise and less fuel costs, but less ownership costs for a car. So those are important values.
Yeah.
How did you decide on the combination heating system that you used?
I was looking for something, and I was aware of hydronic heating. Some of the quotes were, well, they were over $20,000. They wanted to do zone valves and everything. Yeah. And I thought, surely there must be a simple way. And I even considered possibly running just a line off the hot water tank to heat the, I'm just trying to take the chill off the basement. It's low grade heat, put it in the floor, whatever. Surely there's got to be a simple, relatively inexpensive way to do that. And at that time I was told, no, the code doesn't allow you to use a hot water tank for space heating and so on. So now when I found out about these, there's several on-demand heaters on the market that do both. This particular one's a Baxi. And so, not only is it really high efficiency, but you're going to need domestic hot water anyway. So it just switches between space heat and domestic hot water. That system, I think that was about a $10,000 job. There's radiators, there was the boiler, there was running the tubing through the walls, there was embedding the tubing in the floor. It's sort of, some of the basement was developed, so I used radiators, so I didn't have to, because I wasn't able to put it in the floor. Other areas where we were kind of starting from scratch, like the bathrooms, I had the floor open, so I was able to actually put PEX tubing in the floor and in spaces that were under construction.
Yeah, thank you for that. I appreciate your comment about using a hot water tank for space heating. Actually, my business partner, Will Mayhew, has used a hot water tank for space heating in the other side of the duplex that I'm on for since 1986. We stuck it in there.
Yeah, and I've since found out that it is indeed actually possible. And in fact, there's a couple big name hot water tank manufacturers, and they have an extra port on the tank for that purpose. Yeah.
Yes. And now, actually, after 35 years in the house, the hot water tank failed for the first time, and the homeowner now put in an electric water tank. So they completely dumped their gas line and are pure electric with their water tank heating their whole house. It's an energy efficient house, of course, but we have a question from YouTube. Thank you for YouTube. Do you have a blower door test results? And I would actually add to that, have you done an EnerGuide rating on this house now?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I really enjoyed that presentation before mine. I think it was the fellow there speaking, Glenn, I think it was talking about the blower door test. And I thought, oh, shoot, I forgot. I never thought of that. And I should have grabbed the paperwork. And I know that the house was super drafty. Multiple air changes an hour. We're not worried about indoor air quality or excessive humidity because the house was just so drafty. But definitely, and I'm sorry, I don't have that number. I did get the blower door test, and I did add in the heat recovery ventilator, and it is necessary. Like with that foam insulation and the stucco and the new doors and new windows, the house is tight. In fact, really too tight to be healthy. So sorry, and I don't have that number. And I just listening to Glenn there is like, oh, I should have looked that up before I got online.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could provide it to us, and then when people write in, we could respond to them with that numbers. But have you had, so that blower door test is one thing, but have you had an EnerGuide audit done?
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. So that the blower door test was part of that EnerGuide test. And so, yeah, originally 53, which is bad. And then it was 79.
That's right.
Sort of after the first round of renovations. So, and then, so that's not including the solar, and this is the old system, which was out of 100. Yeah. But it's since have done more upgrades and added the renewable and so on. So I'm not exactly sure. I haven't had one sort of for where it is now, but it would be up there.
And when were all the renovations finished, roughly?
Finished a couple of years ago.
Oh,
You know,
I see.
I have to laugh because in that first picture, there's a picture of my daughter out. Well, actually, the first and last picture, there's a picture of my daughter who's now in university. And so there's a picture of her on her bike, and I think she was 6 or 7 years old. So it was a long process. You know, it was 10 years, you know, a bit at a time, and so it was ongoing, and then finished. I guess you're never, ask anyone who does a project like this. I don't think you're ever completely finished. And now I'm looking at doing a laneway house and some other things. But I guess most of the big renovations were done about 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, thank you so much, Ken, for your leadership on this. It's really wonderful to see. I mean, my goodness, going from 53 to 79 in one go, that's just absolutely brilliant. So,
that's really good.
Thank you so much for your leadership on this. And if you're doing other things, please come back on the Solar Home Tour so we can continue to follow what you're doing.
Well, thank you. And yeah, thanks, Andrew, Gordon, and everybody for helping to organize this. It's been my pleasure.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to move on now, and we're going to do something a little bit different. Our next site on the tour is not a home. Our next site on the tour is we're billing as Killarney Electric Vehicles. And in fact, it's the electric vehicle dealership called Go Electric. And we do have a video to show a little bit more about this interesting business in Calgary. And we'll let this video run to give you a brief introduction, and then we'll come back after that for questions. So let's run the video. Hi there, and welcome to the Echo Solar Home Tour. My name is Andrew Mills, and today we'll be talking about Go Electric and EV Underground, a used car dealership, electric vehicle service center, and electric vehicle conversion shop in the Killarney neighborhood in Calgary. With me today are Raiko Pavic, the manager of Go Electric, and Jason Arnold, the lead EV conversion technician at EV Underground. Welcome to the Echo Solar Home Tour, Raiko and Jason.
Thanks, Andrew.
Fun to hear.
So your company demonstrates how electric vehicles can work in Alberta. I understand that you offer a variety of used vehicles for sale, that you do electric vehicle conversions and retrofits, that you service electric vehicles, and that you have free level 2 vehicle charging on site. Give me a bit of background on why you chose to go into the business of electric vehicles. What were the main things you were trying to accomplish?
So Go Electric was founded in 2018 to support the electric vehicle community with not only ready-to-drive factory-produced electric cars, but also to offer service capabilities for all used electric and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. What we found was the problem is lack of used electric vehicles available here in Alberta, leaving those who were interested having to travel to other provinces or to the US to purchase one and bring it back, and furthermore, then have possible issue with service. Jason?
So yeah, I'm down here at EV Underground. Our founders have passion for everything electric. One of the founders, David Lloyd, has been converting practically everything from ride-on mowers to go-karts for his kids. So just a passion for everything electric there that wasn't a vehicle. So now we've been very encouraged by what we're seeing from other shops in Europe and in the United States, kind of throughout the world, that are working on classic vehicles. And so that's what we're getting into here, is just helping people experience their electric dream car.
So yeah, there is inherent synergy between having one location for offering both electric vehicles and service and maintenance, as well as electric conversions, because it does help us develop the expertise and be here for people long term. And be kind of a central hub for all things electric cars here in Alberta and Western Canada.
That sounds good. So how are you looking at reducing carbon emissions in transportation? What are your motivations for embracing electric?
So electric cars in Alberta actually generate about half of greenhouse gas emissions of internal combustion, gas and diesel engines. When charged directly from our grid. A lot of people driving electric cars further reduce the greenhouse gas emission from transportation to near zero by charging with green power such as solar. A few of us here actually have solar systems on our homes, and that helps us basically bring those emissions to near zero. Also, electric cars are a very important piece of the puzzle in the quest to build a more sustainable and reliable future, not only by consuming green energy, but also by providing eventually vehicle to grid service where basically the batteries from electric cars help push power to the grid to help balance it.
Interesting. So when people are able to get out and see your facility, what would they be able to see when they got there?
So they'll be able to see basically how electric cars work in Alberta, even during the winters, especially if they're here during the winter, they can test drive cars and kind of see how that looks like. Capabilities in general of electric cars for city commuter vehicles or potentially some of the longer range cars for the road trips. You can kind of look into if those electric cars can meet your daily commuting requirements or beyond that, as well as the economic environmental benefits of switching to electric cars. They can also gain insight into the requirements and limitations of converting your internal combustion engine car to electric. And if the tour is in person, there will be test drives available for people to experience really the future of sustainable driving.
Interesting. So what can you tell me about EV Underground and electric conversions? What are you doing there?
Well, we got our start pretty organically. EV Underground came to be because Go Electric was seeing kind of a consistent level of demand for conversions of all types of vehicles. And so now that we're underway, we're actually seeing interest not only at a local level, but kind of throughout Western Canada. But for us, one of the main motivators is that, we're car guys down here, and conversions are a great way to keep a classic vintage vehicle on the road. You get improved reliability, you get improved performance, lower operating costs, lower maintenance costs. So a bit of a win all around on that classic vehicle ownership take. And then the other thing about it is that conversions scratch a lot of itches. And so whether your motivation is like ecological or performance based, in our case, you kind of don't have to choose between the two. So.
Interesting. I see you've got some interesting stuff there in the shop today. We're actually right there amongst the tools. Oh, there's another picture. Tell us about the cars in this picture, Jason. Which ones are these?
All right. So we've got a few. So I'll start with the tube chassis on the left there. That was kind of the project that had launched us. And that's a kit car, Type 65 by a company called Factory 5 Racing out of the US. And so we had a customer approach us with this. He's just a fan. You can't see the body in that picture, but it's a really beautiful, basically that car is based on a 1965 Shelby Daytona coupe. So a very sexy Shelby racing.
Picture there, maybe.
There it is. That's right, the body. Okay. And so, yeah, that's the body that goes under the tube chassis. And so we had a customer approach us for that, just saying, can you assemble my kit and can you make it electric? And
very interesting.
Yeah.
And then the other slide, Raiko?
Yeah, so back to the other body up on the lift there. So that is a 1960s Volvo wagon. And so that is a project that we are working on in collaboration with a team called Re-Electric out of the University of Calgary. And so they brought that chassis to us, and they have a student body that's made up of different engineering disciplines as well as business. And they're kind of collaborating on this as a project to get experience with electric vehicles, because they, as a student club, have the goal of kind of advancing electric vehicle conversion technology and making it more approachable to the masses. And so we're glad to be hosting them and kind of mentoring them on that build.
That's really interesting. Now, if we're able to get people out to your facility for a tour someday, what other things would people be able to see during your facility during any tour we were able to put together?
So information obviously will be available on electric cars in general, just anything people might want to ask, as well as on the selection of vehicle available in Canada and Calgary in particular, what vehicles are kind of suitable for our climates, why. Of course, we can go into all those details, and yeah, and that includes, of course, all the makes and models, including, I don't know, the Nissan, Tesla, obviously, Chevrolet, or anything else, really. There's quite a few, actually, of them. Also, all of us can kind of help answer the question about electric cars, from powertrain design, battery placement, why stuff is put where they put it, and as well as obviously the electric vehicle ownership, because that's a huge aspect that not a lot of people have experience with, and especially people looking to buy electric cars. Obviously, 99% of them come from the world of driving an electric, non-electric car. So that's a big thing. How do you charge it? Where you charge it? How much that costs, etc. What the charging needs for electricity in your home, etc., etc.
Well, I'm going to ask another question that's not here today, and that is, I want to know what you guys are driving. So, Raiko and Jason, what cars what are you driving? An electric car?
So I guess I'll answer that first. My family is driving a Kia Soul electric from 2016 that we got a little over a year ago, and that's our main family vehicle, even though it's a fairly short range car, but it gets us everywhere around the city, and we travel to Banff and Canmore with it, which is our favorite trip anyways. So that's what I'm driving.
Jason, how about you?
All right. So being a classic vehicle person, I'm a little more in and out of vehicles, but I used to have a little humble Mitsubishi i-MiEV. That was kind of my first EV, but more on the conversion side. I've got a couple builds under the knife at the moment. So if you kind of look way behind me, you can see there's an old Volkswagen bus in the background that I've been picking away at. So got
interesting.
Pretty big plans for that one.
Well, I got myself a 2018 Nissan Leaf, so I've been enjoying that. So it's I appreciate you guys putting together these facilities for electric vehicles, and I hope to be able to come down and see your facility sometime soon. So thank you, Raiko and Jason, for joining me today and sharing pictures of your facility. I am looking forward to being able to get down and see your facility in person on the tour. I also want to thank our Echo Solar. Okay, we'll stop that video there, and we'll hand things over to Gordon for any questions that have come in. Gordon, what questions do we have for Raiko?
Well, I got a ton of questions. I'm fascinated by the conversions, and I think that there could be quite a nice market for this. One question that came in was, can you convert a Ford Ranger? I think that's a small truck, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a small truck. It's actually quite a popular vehicle for conversions. We have a guy in Calgary. His name is Terry Orr, which actually did convert 1980 something Ford Ranger to electric, and he actually went through, I think, at least 2 or 3 drivetrains, upgrading every time to more power, more capability, better charging, more capacity, battery capacity, etc., etc. So I think he would be a phenomenal resource to ask about particulars, but it's definitely a really popular and good car to convert.
Mm-hmm. I have a 1988 Volvo V70 station wagon, and I've been wondering if I could convert that one over.
Yeah, and actually our, let's say, older cars before like 90s or so are actually easier to convert because there's a lot less electronics in them. So there's a lot less loose ends that you kind of have to tie together for everything to work, because the newer cars have a lot of computers that expect input on certain sensors or on certain electronics that have to be there, otherwise the car freaks out, right? Like, this system is not there, it's not working within the parameters and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it is a possibility. The only thing about conversions to kind of know is that they are fairly pricey just because the batteries are quite expensive retail, first of all, and then pretty much all conversions are custom work as well, right? So it's usually starts about $25,000 and north of that for pretty much any vehicle.
Okay, but at least that's a number we can start to consider, right? 25 grand.
Yeah, absolutely.
For converting over our favorite car rather than buying something new. And of course, we know that half of the greenhouse gas emissions caused by a car happens at its manufacture. So realistically, if we convert over, we're saving the planet quite a bit of greenhouse gas emissions right there on a per car basis. Thank you. Couple other questions that have come in, which are really good. Have you done a camper van EV conversion, partial one or a full one? And related to this, have you worked on a pickup or van type vehicles for conversion?
Not that I'm aware. I don't think we actually have done one of those, but I mean, the cars are fairly, again, it will really depend on the car. Bigger vehicles are somewhat easier to convert because there's a lot of space. We actually just had one of our friends show up half an hour ago with the electric Jeep. I think it's like 1990s two-door Wrangler that he converted to electric, and that was actually his first comment. It was like really easy because there's tons of space where you can put stuff. So this goes for both pickup trucks and usually the camper vans as well. The only limiting factor on there would be probably the battery capacity and the range you can get out of them. But I mean, that can be solved with better batteries and more of them, right?
Raiko, I'm going to break in here. You sent me some additional pictures on conversion today. Why don't I walk through those pictures and you can describe those in greater detail? Let me click ahead for those.
Sure, sounds good. So yeah, this is what we're looking here is part of the Tesla motor, and that is part of the build for the Daytona 65 downstairs. Right now, the guys are working on testing the motor, and soon they're going to be actually taking the car out for a spin without the body, but kind of testing the entire drivetrain on there. And this is actually that motor that will be powering the car. It's in the rear, but it actually comes from the front. It's originally a front motor from the Tesla Model S, or actually Tesla Model X in this case, which outputs around 300 horsepower. And of course, on this light car, this is going to be quite amazing. And yeah, this is basically the entire build. You can see the motor in there, which is going to be powering the rear wheels. And here we can actually see quite a lot of things. I think down at the bottom in that cupboard are the batteries. Those are battery modules. And then up on the table is on the right side, you can see the charger for the Nissan Leaf, as well as that connector probably belongs to it. And then all the way to the left, I think that's the motor and the reduction gearbox for the Leaf as well. And their favorite things ever, batteries. This is actually a module from the Tesla Model S and Model X. They're identical, which is about 5.5 kilowatt hours. And yeah, it's very popular for conversions. It's a higher-end stock for batteries because Tesla batteries are one of the better ones that you can get for kind of overall, if you're looking at reliability, capacity, heating, cooling requirements, and all that stuff, Tesla batteries are one of the best to use. There are some other ones that are heavily used in conversions for some particular aspects of it. For example, if you want more specific power, you would use the Chevy batteries, which are really, especially from the Volt, because they actually output a lot of power related to their capacity. So if you want not so much capacity, but you want a lot of power, those are kind of the ones to use. But if you want like overall a really good vehicle, Tesla batteries are really safe.
Raiko, that's all the pictures we have. Let me throw in a few additional questions. So with this Tesla module that we see here, you say they have really good cooling. Now I understand, do they not have liquid cooling, and how would that work?
They do actually have liquid cooling, and if you look really closely at this photo, you can see almost like copper colored wrap around, yes, right there. So that's that thing basically, it's almost like a metal ribbon channel that snakes around those cells.
Another one
and
here.
coolant runs through that.
And,
So it goes.
And potentially, Andrew, you can see it going down smack down the middle of the battery pack. Right there.
It looks like a wire, actually. It looks like a wiring harness there, but
that's not part of the cooling.
No, that's I'm pretty sure that's a sensors. That would be like voltage sensors for the cells or something.
Okay, thank you.
The cooling goes on basically the sides of a cell, but all the way down and back up and down and back up, and it basically enters the module in one place and then exits on the other side.
So the other follow-on question would be how available are these batteries? I mean, they're not usually available just sort of retail. You can't just call up Tesla and say, "Sell me a bunch of batteries." Where are you are you obtaining these batteries from?
The batteries are mostly from salvaged vehicles. So vehicles that have been written off because of the frame damage or because of just too much of the body damage. There are salvage places who will take the vehicles apart and check for the modules and check the batteries because they're valuable. And any modules that are not damaged, that are obviously being tested and checked out and that are working properly, those get sold on the free market. So and that's mostly how you source batteries right now, because as you mentioned, it's very hard, not impossible. We do have sources for getting batteries at retail right now as well, but a lot of these modules are just bought in the second market use.
So, sorry, go ahead, Gordon.
I have some questions too. You referenced the word modules. Could you go back to that battery picture, Andrew? You referenced the word modules, which of course we have in the solar PV industry too. Could you describe to our listeners what a module is when it comes to batteries?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So kind of similar as in a solar module consists of a number of cells, whether it's a 72 cells or 60 cells, I'm not sure if those numbers are exact, but you have a whole bunch of cells connected in a module. It's the same way for the battery. The battery cells are connected to a module. So if you look at this module, the little round things you see at the top, those are kind of the tops of the little cells. So the cells on this particular module are slightly bigger size than your AA batteries, and they're all in there. Basically the module is a whole bunch of cells together that have a common, usually battery management system and cooling, heating, all the other stuff that are making that module safe and productive, I guess, if you want to call it. So it's basically a whole bunch of cells with all the supporting infrastructure to make them actually usable.
Ah, okay, thank you. A question that came in was, how do you determine the health of a used EV battery, and how does this factor into the used EV price?
So obviously, when you're shopping for an electric car or just the battery, you want to make sure that the batteries are good. There are a number of ways you can do that. If you're looking at a car, like let's say we right now have a whole bunch of cars on in our parking lot in the front, which are electric. A lot of them you can connect with the communication module to the CAN bus, and you can actually read the state of health of the batteries. So we can say that this Fiat has a 85%, or this Leaf has a 90.74% state of health of the battery. And what that means is basically it has 90.75% of the original battery capacity. So that's one way you can read it. Or if you're looking at the module, obviously there's no CAN bus available there. So what you can do, you can just do the capacity test.
Thank you.
Couple questions, Raiko. So I have an electric vehicle. I have a 2018 Leaf. We're not to the point yet where you can do a battery swap to increase the performance of a vehicle. Like there's nobody out there just yet that says, I've got a new module that will double the performance or the range of your particular vehicle, and you can't put those in. Those are not ready yet, but I think they're coming, are they not?
There are a number of things that's coming, even right now for, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I think you have a 2018 Nissan Leaf, right?
Yeah, I've got a 40 kilowatt.
Yeah, so for the 40 kilowatt hour Leaf, for example, if you look at this Leaf on this photo, the red one over there, that's a 2017, and that Leaf has a 30 kilowatt hour battery pack. You can actually drop that 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, and you can plop in, so to speak, the 40 kilowatt hour battery pack or the 62 kilowatt hour battery pack from the 2019 and 2020 Leaf Plus. And it will, with some actually CAN bus modifications to bypass the Nissan's proprietary right to repair it, you can actually have the car that goes twice the range. So that is available right now.
You just have to get a salvage battery, though, of the larger size.
That is correct. And that is the one limitation for those, because Nissan sold a lot of Leafs of, let's call them first generation, which are cars that are 2011 to 2017, which is this body style as you see on the photo. Yours is the first year that of the second generation of Leafs. And they sold a lot of the older cars. And some of those older cars, especially like 2011, 2012, now have somewhat degraded batteries. And there are a lot of people actually looking for those 40 and 62 kilowatt hour batteries to change and replace in their cars, to put them in their cars, which is a good idea. It's just that obviously there isn't a lot of newer Leafs that are candidates, because most of them are being driven like yours, right? Like they're in good condition, so you're not looking to sell your battery, and right. Hopefully your battery will be in your car serving you for another 10 or 15 years or whatever. So the supply for those batteries is just very, very thin, but it's possible. It's technically actually fairly easy as well. Even the mounting points on all that, on all those Leafs are exactly the same. So it's actually quite possible and quite easy. What will probably be better in the future, though, is there are companies working on drop-in replacement for those older Leaf of aftermarket batteries, where you don't actually have to wait for a random Nissan Leaf to get wrecked so you can maybe salvage the battery, but you can actually buy new modules or an entire battery pack and just replace it.
They're just not available just yet.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have any idea of what the cost might be for battery replacements?
The battery replacement cost is really dictated by the price of batteries. And lately, the price of batteries is somewhere in the range of, let's say, about $15,000 for 60 kilowatt hours. So if you're looking at the battery pack, which is about 62 kilowatt hours, which is your Chevy Bolt, your newer Nissan Leaf, newer Kia Soul EVs, Kona EV, and all the other cars of sort of a second gen with bigger batteries, they're probably about $15,000 for a pack. And it's driven not only by conversion market, but also by a solar market. because a lot of us who have solars on our home also are keenly waiting to build storage. So we can actually store that solar power in those battery packs, especially in the bigger battery packs. 60 kilowatt hour will get us through several days, right? So 60 kilowatt hours is really appealing. And there's a lot of batteries that get bought for that exact purpose.
So I'm going to ask you, Raiko, about the vehicles and the source of vehicles. So there are quite a few electric vehicles being sold now. And as I understand it, a large source of used vehicles in both the internal combustion market, but also now more in the electric market, is what they call lease returns. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Sure. There are a healthy amount of people who lease cars, and leases usually last 2 to 4 years, with 3 years being the most typical. So what's happening is you lease a car, you use it for 3 years, and then you return it to the original company that you bought it from. So if you leased a Chevy, you would just return it to GM after 3 years and lease a new car. And that's for a lot of people a way to always have a new car that's under warranty and they don't have to worry about anything, kind of thing. So that's appealing to them. So there's a constant stream of those cars coming back. What is good for the used market is those cars are usually kept in really good condition because, first of all, they're fairly new. And second, the owners who lease the cars took care that the car is in good condition because they will be charged penalties if anything is wrong on the car. So those cars tend to be a really good quality inventory for the used market. And that's why we kind of try and get them as much as we can because they're reliable source of used vehicles and they're good source.
So I used to be in sales, and so I was given a leased car as part of my compensation package. And the interesting thing about the lease is that you actually have to stay within a certain mileage. You can't actually. It's about 20,000 kilometers a year is what you're allowed to put on it. If you go over that, there's a penalty. So when the car is returned after lease, they have a fairly well-established value. And I understand that there's quite a few Chevy Bolts on lease return in the U.S. market these days, and that's one of the major sources of used EVs right now.
Actually, I wish you are almost correct on that. Up until a couple of months ago, there was a very healthy number of used Chevy Bolts, and that was quite amazing, as you just said. We had quite a few, and that was awesome. But then when Q1 of 2021 hit, there was basically almost no Chevy Bolts available off lease. And you can actually track the reason for that on the Chevy Bolt EV sales chart, because Chevy sold quite a few vehicles in 2017, and it culminated in them selling quite a lot of vehicles in the Q4 of 2017. And then their sales sharply dropped in Q1 of 2018. And the actual culprit for that is most likely a Tesla Model 3, which launched in Q4 of 2017, but with very limited numbers. Q1 of 2018 is when Tesla Model 3 started deliveries in bigger numbers. And if you look at the sales chart for the Bolt, sales of the Bolt dropped about 75% between those two quarters. So Q4 2017 to Q1 2018. And that's what really dried up the inventory of the lease return Bolts and used Bolts in the Q1 of 2021, because we're actually 3 years from that quarter where the sales were really low. And unfortunately, literally since the beginning of the year, it's been kind of a struggle to get Bolts, and they actually got more expensive, both for us and subsequently for the customers as well.
I have some questions.
Absolutely.
Do you repair out of warranty Teslas?
Yeah, we will work on any electric cars out there that have any sort of issue. regardless what we're talking about, whether we're talking about battery packs or some of the smaller things, heating systems, etc. Yeah, we'll work on any EV, including Teslas.
There's another question about Teslas. You don't appear to sell many of them. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it's pure value. It's just they're very, very expensive in the used market, and we're actually in a pretty bizarre situation where you can go on AutoTrader or Kijiji right now and look up, let's say, a Tesla Model 3, and very often you will find cars that will be actually more expensive than a brand new Tesla Model 3, which, in our opinion, obviously makes no sense. So we're just not part of that market because it just doesn't make sense. If you're looking for a Tesla Model 3, for example, or a Tesla Model Y, you're way better off walking straight into a Tesla gallery and buying one rather than looking in the used market, because the prices on the used market are literally insane.
How about Audi e-trons?
Audi e-trons are a little like they don't have that problem. They're just a little more rare and they're a little higher price items. So that falls into the category where we don't really bring them for inventory. So we can bring them for customers specifically, and we do that for a lot of cars. Somebody wants a different color Bolt, or a lower mileage or higher mileage. Somebody wants a higher mileage car because they don't care because EVs are reliable, but they're more price sensitive. So we would just source a car specifically for them. So there's that option as well, besides just what's in our inventory.
For the conversions that you guys are doing, what about charging? Are the conversions configured with the standard level 2 connectors called J1772?
Yeah, that's right. Most of the conversions have the J1772 plug, like that's very standard. And then for some higher end builds, for example, that Daytona is specified that they actually wanted to have the quick charging as well. So that car will have the level 3 charging or DC fast charging.
Right. Do you have any comments to make about vehicle to grid chargers?
So vehicle to grid protocol is kind of essential to have a vehicle push power into the grid. And so far, CHAdeMO has a protocol. So if you have a car with a CHAdeMO is capable of doing that. You would need a certain module that I believe sells for about $3,000. I don't recall exactly what's the power output of it. But you can get, for example, Andrew, you can have that module plugged into your Leaf and you can supply probably, I don't know, like 10 kilowatts or 20 kilowatts or whatever of power to, like you can create 10 or 20 kilowatt of AC power directly from your battery. There are some other, of course, smaller inverters that you can just use on the 12-volt system, but of course that severely limits your available power. I have, for example, the module that inverter that I used the other day at my home that I connected to my Kia Soul EV, but the inverter limit is only 1.1 kilowatts. So of course that will run only a couple of lights or just my laptop and my internet router, and that's pretty much
it. The whole vehicle to grid scene seems to be changing quite quickly. Of course, the Ford F-150 Lightning is going to be leading the charge on some of that too. But also the new electrical code coming out next year is going to have some pretty severe limitations on batteries when it comes to homes. So it's going to be interesting to see how standalone batteries, or sorry, grid connected batteries in a home are going to be dealt with on the code versus the much larger vehicle batteries. That's still to be worked out.
Actually, yeah, the one thing that I kind of like seeing, a lot of the manufacturers in terms of the hardware, the cars are quite capable of serving this purpose. So it will more come down just to updates that will actually allow this to happen. Like Tesla, for example, their charger in all their cars pretty much is bidirectional. So it can output to 11.5 kilowatts either way, in or out. So, and for now, Tesla is not using the out possibility. So you can just charge the car with 11.5 kilowatts. It will not let you push it to the grid or push it to the outside battery or whatever. But that's just a matter of them enabling it.
Right.
And as you said, it's going to be depending a lot on the codes and regulations and everything else too.
Can you briefly, I think we're running out of time, but can you briefly mention the difference between the vehicle to grid idea versus the vehicle to house idea?
So I think you might actually know more about this, but I'm pretty sure. So vehicle to grid would be going like you're actually connected all the way to the bigger power grid. Vehicle to the house would be like an island. So it's the system that just works. Basically, there is no connection to the grid. That would be like kind of an offline system.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Raiko. That's great. I know you're actually on the tour again tomorrow afternoon, where we're going to see your house and your electric vehicle again. So that will be great. We'll get to talk to you a little bit more about that. So thank you very much.
What site number tomorrow?
That's site number 10 at the end of the day tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Fantastic.
Okay, we're ready to move on to our next home, our last home for today. This is a Richmond Net Zero Ready home. We have with us today Chris Stevenson, who is going to be able to answer questions afterwards. But Chris has prepared a terrific video for us. We're going to watch that video first, just as an introduction to the home, and then we'll come back and we'll have questions with Chris. Let's just set that up and run the video.
The objective of the build was to build a net zero passive solar luxury home in energy-rich Calgary, Alberta. Did we achieve this objective? Yes and no. Will it last a long time? Yeah, it'll last 200, 300, 400 years. It's built out of concrete. Does the passive solar work? Absolutely. Is it a luxury home? Yeah. Is it net zero? No, it is not net zero. So, no solar panels. First of all, net zero. What does net zero mean? Net zero means that the house produces as much energy as it consumes. That is the definition of net zero. So to be net zero, we would have to put on 13.5 kilowatts of photovoltaic solar panels on the roof. Not a problem, we can do that, but I have two problems with that. One is we would have to give up our rooftop deck. I've got provisions for solar on the very top of the house, but I don't want to give up that rooftop deck. Hate to say it. And number two is, I hate to say it, but it's purely economics. A lot of people ask me who the builder was of this place, and we didn't use a builder. When we started out, I did not know any good builders at the time. And, you know, to be truthful, do you want somebody to build the house that you and your family are going to be living in that is basically built by the lowest bidder? That's not my cup of tea. Who actually built the house? It was myself and one other guy, typically. We would find guys that were completely dissatisfied with the construction industry. Well, first of all, they have to have skills. That's the main thing. And then two, they have to be completely dissatisfied with the construction industry. And they wanted to build something that they wanted to build right. Another thing people ask me is, how did I find my trades? There's a lot of people that have had really bad luck with trades. So every trade that came in the door, again, two criteria. They had to basically be a word of mouth referral. And number two, they had to have the willingness to show me what was right and what was wrong within their trade. And they would literally take me to a house and say, this is the way it should be done. And they would take me to another house and they would say, this is a crappy job, and this is why this will fail. It is just so nice to have somebody that is proud of their trade and wants to do the right thing. This house does have some crazy stats. There's 14 tons of rebar. There's 100 cubic meters of concrete, 42 doors. We've got over 10 kilometers of cabling, 11 security cameras. The footings are 5 feet wide. It was an interesting, crazy fun build just because of the logistics and just the amount of stuff we had to put into the house. Again, a lot of people ask me, will I make money on this house? Geez, I hope so. But if we were here and if we built this place to maximize profit, I would have built out of wood. I would have built the most minimum code compliant structure possible. I would have put in the cheapest mechanical system possible. I would have put in just above mid-grade appliances, and I would fill the whole thing up with white lacquer sprayed MDF for finishing and do just a top-notch job on the finishing and sell it and make a lot of money. That's what 98% of all the builders do in inner city, well, and outer city too, probably. But this is not meant to make money. This was built for our living in it, and I wanted something that's going to last, and it will last. I think there was three big surprises with the house in completely different categories. The first one was the view. We knew that we used to live in a little house that was on this lot, and we knew we had a great view of the mountains from the main floor. But it wasn't until we built up to the 3rd floor that we discovered it's like, wow, we've got over 180 degrees of horizon here. So we see the sun come up in the morning and we see it set at night, mostly in the winter. But it is absolutely amazing. The cool thing too is in the summer we can see yellow canola fields. Like, how many people can see canola fields from their inner city house? And then when you're looking at the mountains, we don't see the typical sea of gray that is typical of suburban developments. The Tsuut'ina Nation over there, those guys are fantastic because there's never going to be development there. You just look and you see green foothills, then you see mountains. You don't see the sea of gray. It's perfect. The second one is on a completely different note. Again, it is inner city. There is nuisance crimes. You know, there's people poking around. And strangely, it was just how efficient lighting was for security. We just have simple motion detection lights on the side of the house, and the lights come on and you'll see somebody coming in, the lights come on, and then they just take off and go to another house or they find a car that's unlocked. Third one is outdoor living. Between the multiple decks and the access between the kitchen and the main deck and the crazy garden backyard, most of our meals are spent outside in the summer, definitely lunch and dinner. It's like having an extra 1,000 square feet added onto the house. It's fantastic. What would we change on the house? Not much. The passive solar does not work great on the 3rd floor. So passive solar, it's just think of it as a greenhouse. So you've got southern sunshine coming in, hitting the high mass concrete floors during the day, and then at night, all that heat that is stored in the high mass concrete floors from the sun shining on it radiates into the room. The 3rd floor just isn't as effective as the main floor and the 2nd floors for that, simply because of floor color. We never saw that one coming. The floor, it's a lighter color, and it's sort of a two-tone thing, and we love it. So we're not going to give that up, even in the name of efficiency. So what was the secret of the success of this project? Define success. A lot of people have said it's like, oh, is it LEED certified? Is it Passive House certified? And it's like, I really don't care. Success to me is looking at the utility bills in the dead of winter. In February of 2019, I'm sure everybody remembers that in Calgary. It was this blisteringly cold month. And that was the very first time our utility bills, that's water, sewer, gas, electricity, garbage, everything combined, that's the first time it creeped over $300 a month. We're heating over 5,000 square feet in this place. I love it. Even when we were building it, we had no heat, but it was a lockup stage, so it was insulated, and we had all the triple pane in, and the temperature in January never dropped below 10 degrees. It was just amazing that it worked out that well. But there is no secret to the success. Research, it's thinking about it, it's finding the right guys who actually give a shit about what they're doing, it's putting the right technologies together and thinking about it. And you know, a house it's like a car. There's a lot of different things going on, and you want to make sure that everything works together. So the big thing is understanding how all these systems work and making sure they complement each other as opposed to fighting them. You know, I've seen houses fairly close to this one that the furnace and the air conditioning is on at the exact same time. That is poor design as far as I'm concerned, and nobody seems to care. This place, it's been thought over a lot, and it's just executed well, and it's worked out well. I'm super proud of it. The stat I'm most proud of probably is the blower door test. What is a blower door test? We had an independent energy audit done of the house, and part of that audit is a blower door test. The technician comes in, he puts this huge fan on the inside of the entrance door. And the whole idea, it has a big fan in it, and it seals about the outside of the door, and it sucks all the air out of the house. Well, it tries to suck all the air out of the house. So if you have any leaks, air will just try and come into the house. So he can measure how many air exchanges per hour are happening with your house. So think of that. That is the entire volume of air in your house, how many times it's exchanged every hour. Now, to give you some perspective, there was a study done in 2007 in Ontario where the average house in Ontario had 7.5 air exchanges per hour. So think about that. So every hour on a windy day, the entire volume of your house in air is changing out 7.5 times an hour. So the air comes in, you heat it, and then it goes away. The air comes in, you heat it, and it goes away. 7.5 times an hour. So I was pretty happy with our result, and we spent a lot of time on making sure this place was tight. So we came up with a 0.17 air exchanges per hour, and that was the tightest house the technician had ever seen. So yeah, we were pretty happy with that. I was absolutely amazed at how much time it took to complete all the other projects after the structure was built. So for example, we've got the 11 camera wired security system, figuring all that out, you know, finding the best system and then actually putting it in with wires. I don't want to go wireless. Then there was the wired alarm system. There was building a fence that actually matches the construction style of the house or the feel of the house. So we ended up with like 8x8 cedar posts, $20 a linear foot. Figured that out. I got a lot of posts. What else was there? There's the living roof on the garage. That one was pretty good. That was only 4 hours, but you know, it's time and money, and it just adds up. But it's just part of the process, and it's worth it. What do I like about the house? Man, where do I start? I like the fact there's no cold rooms, there's no drafty windows. When I shut the windows, like it's all triple pane. When you close a window and you seal it, it just drowns out. Well, you don't hear any city noises at all. I like the fact that we have, you know, a heating system built by Wiesmann. Wiesmann is a German company, started in 1917. It's in the 4th generation of family ownership. In Germany, they still service all of their original products. So in 20 years' time, I'll be able to get parts for this thing. I like that it's gonna last 300-400 years. It's not a typical house. It's not a lipstick queen. What I really like is people saying, it's like, hey, did you get woken up by that big windstorm last night? And I'll say, what windstorm? I've never even heard this house move, shake, snap, crackle, pop, what have you. It's just an amazing experience to live in this house.
Okay, well, that's quite the video. Thank you for that, Chris, and welcome to the EcoSolar Home Tour. Gordon, what have we got any questions for Chris yet?
None. Oh, just a minute. One just came in. What was the cost per square foot?
Oh God, that's a lot of people ask that, Gordon.
Yeah.
It's because I was working on myself. Time is a big factor in that.
Yeah.
In that calculation, and we started building in 2012, and I didn't get occupancy till 2016. So I guess if you go bare bones, we're probably, without looking at all the extra labor costs, because depending on how you price out your own labor, it's probably at least $300 per square foot. But depending on how you look at the labor thing, it's probably north of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know on your site sheet you said something about fake grass at the front. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, no, we actually have xeriscape in the front yard. It's just mulch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we do have in the backyard. It's definitely not xeriscape, but we do have a little bit of grass, but it's just the fake grass, so I don't have to start up a lawnmower or mow that. So.
But when you say fake grass, though, is that just a plant that grows slowly?
No, it's just it's a synthetic grass.
Oh, I see.
You've probably seen it. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Thanks, Andrew.
No problem. I'll try to keep ahead of the pictures here.
All right. It's tough with Gordon.
Another person asked about the Wiesmann heating system. Could you expand on that?
Yeah. So the heating system for the whole house. Well, first of all, the primary heat is the sun with the passive solar heating, and I guess just to supplement or to sort of even out the heat in the house, you can see there's a little white box on basically the top right of the photo there, and that is a tiny little wall-mounted boiler that heats the entire place. The company is Wiesmann, and as I said, it's just an old German company, and I just have faith in them to have parts available for their products.
Chris, is that boiler gas or electric?
That's gas.
Gas, okay.
Yeah, which unfortunately is part of the. When I first started this, I was a little bit ignorant, and in hindsight, if I would have done everything electric, we could have gone net zero the way the current legislation is. But because we do have natural gas heat, and I guess, and that also heats the domestic hot water as well. Well, we have a preheat system as well, but it's a little tricky doing the net zero with gas in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about on your site sheet, something about city planning. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, that was tricky. The actual design, getting the development permit for the house was a little painful with the city of Calgary, because we have fantastic southern frontage, and with any efficient building, you want to reduce the amount of surface area and the amount of windows on the north side. And so there's what they call massing of the house. So this actually, it's kind of interesting, because as soon as you go in there, the city says it's like, oh, you can build anything you want. And then by the end of the process, you understand that you can build anything you want as long as they like it. So that was the massing of the front. We didn't have enough windows, and there wasn't enough sort of contour changes. So, which is fine, and I get it. They want aesthetically pleasing places. But unfortunately, aesthetically pleasing and efficiency doesn't always go hand in hand. So, there was a bit of a compromise there, where we had to have a deck on the top of the north face. And so there's,
or this inset or the one up top?
Exactly on the top there.
Top or inset by the window here?
Yeah, yeah, and that goes along the entire length of the north side. So
there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great little deck, and it's cool and it's quiet in the summer. I can't say we really use it, but if it is smoking hot out, that's the place to be. It does work out well for that. But it increases the exposed surface area on the 2 northern bedrooms on the second floor. And it's funny because like even with the hydronic heating, so all the floors are heated. And so you have to get a sort of a certified drawing done for all your in-floor layout. And unfortunately, the technicians they have doing that don't really take into account the exterior design of the house. So those 2 rooms have a lot more exposed area, like surface area, to the outside. So they're literally a couple degrees cooler than the rest of the rooms on the second floor. So we had to adjust the hydronics a little bit to bring those up to temperature.
Who designed your house?
That was interesting. We started out with drawing pictures and looking around, and we sort of like the contemporary thing. And it's only a 37.5 foot lot, so we needed to go vertically as opposed to horizontally. And so we hired a Todd Dutton. He's a draftsperson in very reasonable rates. And so he could, whatever we came up with, he could just draw it up in AutoCAD and have this beautiful either 2D or a 3D presentation. So we could really sort of mess around and see what our options were. And then in the process with getting the development permit, you would go back and forth with the city with the actual design. And so we sort of nailed down, I would say 70% of the design. And then we hired an architect, Kier, I can't remember her last name, but she came in and she just sort of helped out a little bit with the creativity and just making it look a little bit more pleasing. And that helped with the layout, or Kier helped with the layout a lot as well. It's, just with the logistics, that the house it is not an architectural masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. It's quite conservative inside. Just you've got a main floor with a kitchen and living room, bedroom floor on the second floor, and then sort of a bonus room on the third floor. So we just wanted something simple that we didn't want to sort of timestamp the house with certain design features or materials for that matter. So so Kier, and I think a lot of people are misled that you have to have an architect to do the whole thing. But there's, the architects don't stamp any drawings. You're fine just with designing your own house, as long as your municipality will allow you to build it. And then you find a good draftsperson who are very well versed in building code, and they can basically tell you what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, I'm about to show another picture, and the furniture just all changed here. So
Okay.
I think you had pictures with 2 sets of furniture in the main floor here. So I just cautioned people that, yes, the furniture did just change.
So actually, that's funny because we're in the process of selling the house, and so many realtors have said, it's like we're into the mid-century thing, as you can see with that photo there. And so many realtors come in and say, "Oh, you have to get rid of that old tired furniture." And it's just like, okay, so what you saw there was virtually staged. That's just all photoshopped in with
I see.
Puffy.
And this is your real furniture. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. So that's what it actually looks like.
Do you have a energy model or at all? Sorry, the question is, did you do an energy model at all? And if so, what was the space heating demand?
Yeah, oh man, that was a long time ago, Gordon, but I modeled it out on Hot 2000.
Oh yeah.
And so that was, I messed around with that. That is I don't know, I'm not exactly a great sort of software guy. And so that was that was a real education just going through there and messing around with different modeling. But yeah, unfortunately, that's too long ago. I can't remember what my heat demands were, but we used that to, yeah, we did use the original modeling to size the boiler, and I think the boiler is 90,000 BTU. So if that's probably the closest approximation I can get.
And this is your inner guide at 71 gigajoules per year. Is that still pretty accurate?
You know what? That's a little generous.
They always are, by the way.
Okay, that's good to know. Because I actually, over the last 4 years, I'm closer to, well, actually, okay, so it's 67.7 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. So we'd have to convert that to gigajoules if anybody has a calculator handy.
What happens with the Guide is they estimate based on climate zones. And so the climate zone that you were in was probably estimated as high as 6,000 degree days per year, heating degree days per year. And the average, I've been tracking that, is closer to 5,000. So the Guide is when you see these Guide in gigajoules, they're trying not to take into account that people would live at a much lower sort of energy intensity. So it's supposed to be independent of occupant. And so they tend to be a little higher when we have super efficient homes or when we have people living in the homes whose behavior is very efficient.
Yeah, and you're right. So much of that is people's living habits as well. It's like, I'm sure if any of you have teenagers, you understand how much your bills go up with all the extra showering and lights left on and that sort of thing. There's no kids in the house, so the house is pretty lean. But we do have hairless cats, so we have to keep the temperature relatively high for them. So I guess they offset the teenager quotient.
The key for Guide and HOT 2000 is that it evaluates the building envelope. It doesn't evaluate the people.
That's right.
So what they do is they take a standard profile for water use and electricity use, domestic electricity use, and then they go through the envelope and do all the calculations for insulation and windows and all and size and all that stuff. But the space heating requirements of the house are a function of the building envelope only, but some of the space heating requirements are supplied by all the electricity that's used inside the house. So all the electricity that's used inside the house goes to heat the house, every speck of it. And all the sun coming in the windows goes to heat the house, every speck of it.
Yeah.
And so the net of what the house uses minus the electricity coming in, minus the sun coming in, is then what the furnace needs as a supplement to what the environment will give us. For instance, my house here in the summertime doesn't use any energy for space heating, of course, because this environment provides it all.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's the reason why that. There was a question that came in for upper bedrooms. Could you have implemented zoned heating and added thermostats to handle the temperature differences?
Yeah,
no big deal for you.
Yeah, that's possible. So Pete from Lean to Renew, he designed the system for me and helped us install it. And we're big believers in just very basic simplicity. And so we just went with one thermostat on each floor.
Oh yeah.
And in hindsight, yeah, it probably wouldn't have cost a whole lot extra to zone out the rooms with their own individual thermostats. And technology is constantly changing. It's you never know. And and especially in the efficiency world now in heating, it's really nice to see that we've got a lot of options coming that we certainly didn't have 10 years ago.
And it's wonderful to see the passive house standard, for example, to show how little heating system one needs in a house, period. Yeah. And I know the mentality that was in the 70s and early 80s from even engineers. They just didn't trust heating systems, so they oversized everything. But the Saskatchewan Conservation House really revolutionized the whole heating system for houses around the world. And that's where we are today, which we can now do Passive House, which is actually based on the Saskatchewan Conservation House in
Really?
Regina.
Yeah, that's interesting. That whole Saskatchewan connection there. It's like they
Yes.
were, I like to, yeah, I just love the idea of, passive houses, as I always compare them to sort of settlers' houses, where it's like you needed to make as much use of your environment as you possibly could, where, in the or starting in the 40s or whatever, like you're alluding to, it's like, okay, well, we can just build all these boxes. We don't care where they are, what the orientation is, or how many windows they have in them. We can just put in bigger furnaces and we're done. You have a comfortable living space. The thing was, I guess it was very similar to cars, wasn't it? Where if fuel is only 15 cents a gallon, it's like, why even bother with fuel economy, let alone emissions?
Yeah, well, absolutely. My dad worked for Imperial Oil all his life in the gas processing side, and he was telling me about in the 1950s where methane gas cost 15 cents a gigajoule. So nobody cared.
Yeah.
But anyways, shoot, there was other thoughts that I had.
Chris, I've got a question for you. In the pictures that you sent me recently, there seems to be a solar thermal collector. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's just a domestic hot water preheat system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you go two to the left on the bottom there, there's two indirect hot water tanks.
Okay.
So the panels on the roof feed the first tank and preheat the domestic hot water before it goes to the second indirect tank, which is fired by the boiler.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's that's working out really well. I'm super pleased with that.
Nice. So that it's just reducing your energy input to your hot water.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I think mid-spring and mid-fall it works the best. I don't have them angled very much. They're almost vertical, and so it will preheat the first tank to about 40 degrees Celsius, perhaps 45 on a good day, and then so the primary tank only has to bring it up to 60 degrees C. So
does it work well in the dead of winter? With vertical, you wouldn't have any snow. Do they actually pick up some heat then?
Oh, it works beautifully in the winter. It's great because, like you say, that the snow doesn't collect on them, and our sun is so low on the horizon in the winter that they're still pretty effective. But it's just we just don't have as many hours of sunlight, of course, to heat it up. But it's pretty efficient because the sun is like almost directly on them in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
The other question I'll throw out, another unique feature is your green roof on your garage. Tell me a little bit about the structure of this and how did you support the weight of this? Because usually if you put soil up there, you need quite a bit of structure. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so these are all sedums. It's a product from Eagle Lake Nurseries. They were the first company that I came across because we were looking for a green roof product, and there was a lot of options, but this was the first company that said, it's like, okay, this is what we've got. This is how much it costs. And you need to make sure that you have enough load capability of your live load capability of your roof to support another 32 pounds per square feet. So we had engineered this in long before the garage was built. And so instead of going from 24-inch centers, we had to go down to 16-inch centers for the roof joists of the garage just to support that load. And then, so we put I think it's a EPDM roof on the garage.
Right.
And then we put and there's a very slight slope to the garage. It might be 3-4% maybe. And then you place another layer of EPDM down over the entire garage roof. and then a truck shows up, like a picker truck with a bunch of racks of these sedums in 1 foot by 2 foot containers, about, I don't know, 4 inches deep. And you just start laying them out in a square pattern, and you keep everything in these little trays, and it's a sort of a mineral based growing medium. And so the roots don't grow past the little tray, so you don't have to worry about roots going into your roofing material. And then you just have sort of a rock ballast around the outside, just to take into account for expansion and contraction of the trays themselves. You wouldn't want them pushed right up against the parapets of the garage there.
Okay, so I did a bunch of green roofs when I was working, and we would build up the roof and then put down various drainage media to drain the water, and then there was typically some fabric and some soil on top of that. So you're saying that these trays are pre-made with the soil and the structure already and the drainage already built into them, and you just lay them side by side.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
nice. That's very nice.
It's super slick because the roof was done in 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but all the prep work was already done, and I had the second layer of EPDM laid out on it. The one mistake I did do is the garage is completely drywalled and finished on the inside. The garage is insulated concrete forms as well. But we drywalled and taped and finished the garage roof before we put the green roof material on. And so, you've got your garage roof is nice and flat, and then you put the material and you get this big arc. So I've got this big long crack right through the middle of the drywall in the garage, just simply because the roof joists have to flex a little bit with all that extra load on it. So yeah, that's one for the next time.
That's a very, very interesting insight indeed.
Yeah, if anybody's thinking about a green roof, especially on a flat roof like that, I would, I guess you could do it, but think about that first before you finish the drywall.
Watch the loading on it. Yeah.
I love your garden, by the way. I think your garden is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. No, that is all due to Wade Wolfe at Calgary Greenworks. He just did a fantastic design. The one thing we did want was we wanted a bog, and you can see the cattails growing in that. And the water feature, it's solar powered. There's just a tiny little panel on the roof of the garage that just runs a 12-volt pump, and it just pumps water from the lower tank up to the taller tank on the east side of the yard, and then it creates a little waterfall effect. It's really cool to have that. It just helps sort of drown out the din of the city, shall we say.
I love your upper balcony. I'm a sucker for upper balconies and the views that they get.
Yep, we were so pleased because we used to live in a tiny little house that was on this lot, and we still had a reasonable view. And I still have these nightmares about, it's like, oh my God, how much embodied energy went into this place? There's so much concrete, there's so much energy that went into the steel and blah, blah, blah. But the old house that was on the lot, the basement was failing. Every time it rained, we'd have like 4 inches of water in the basement. And so that it made me feel better once we were building up and we started to get that view. And it's just like, okay, I think it's worth it. And
yes.
Hopefully that embodied energy that we put into the house is offset by the longevity of it.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Keep your fingers crossed, right?
A question came in. What are your plans for your next house, given that this one is on the market to sell?
The next house is going to be completely opposite in the financial sense, shall we say. Yeah. I want to see how cheaply I can build a, basically a passive house, net zero. It'll probably be off grid. But there's only the two of us, and we just rattle around in this thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you sort of have to build for your market and in the area as well. So the next house is probably going to be on one of the Gulf Islands, and probably, mid-century style, just a little rancher. And, it's the same formula. It's a reasonable insulation, tight envelope, efficient heating system, and southern exposure, if you can get it. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. This will be a different mindset altogether. But, I think there's as much preparation goes into a small house as a big house. If you're trying to make it as efficient as you can, it's all the same math. It's all the same techniques.
Yes.
But this particular house was interesting because it was an experiment. It's like, okay, can I build a sort of a typical, like, we're surrounded by what I call lipstick queens. They're big houses. They're built cheap with great finishing and great staging for the realtors to sell. And I wanted to sort of prove that it's like, okay, well, I can build something that's hopefully as flashy and has the size, but it's like our heating bills are like 4 times less than a lot of the houses around here. Well, our total utility bills. So that's sort of how this kind of came about, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I think we're going to wrap up there. We have done our time for today. So thanks very much, Chris. Chris, when you build your new house out on the Gulf Islands, we'll be looking forward to another video and another walkthrough when you're done.
Love to do it.
That would be great.
Gordon, I think the last time I saw you in the flesh was at the CMHC Equilibrium deal in Edmonton years and years ago. What year was that?
2008 or 9 or 10 or something.
Yeah, it must have been. But anyway, so thank you so much for putting this together, guys. It's wonderful to participate in it.
Great. Thanks again, Chris.
Thanks for all the work that you've done.
I want to do a final thank and shout out to our sponsors. In Calgary, our silver sponsors, 4 Elements and Innotech Windows and Doors. And then our bronze sponsors in Calgary, Skyfire Energy, the City of Calgary, and the Solar Club. Please go to our website to find the links to these sponsors to investigate their services a little bit more thoroughly. Well, thank you very much for those folks that have stuck it out and stayed with us throughout today's tour. Don't forget our other tour days. Tomorrow, we have another 5 sites. We're going to be doing Calgary sites 6 to 10, so another 5 homes on the tour in Calgary. And then next weekend, we have on June 19th, the Saturday, we have an additional 5 homes in Lethbridge. This will be our first time in Lethbridge, and I'm really looking forward to that. Today's tour recording will be posted on our website as soon as we can get it cleaned up and put together. And you can still send questions to info@ecosolar.ca. So if there was something you forgot to ask today, send it to info@ecosolar.ca, and we will monitor that email address. It's actually monitored permanently, so you can ask us a question there anytime. So thank you once again for attending today, and we appreciate everybody supporting and coming out and watching the EcoSolar Home Tour. Thanks again.